I third Prince Road, living my best life. Wine in one hand, reputation in the gutter, zero expectations from anyone in the imperial family. My older brother chops heads for fun. My second brother turns people into museum pieces like some kind of psycho taxidermist. And me? Everyone thinks I'm just the idiot prince who can't stop chasing skirts. Honestly, fair assessment. Then I heard the elves got captured. Not just any elves. The queen, her smokin' hot general, and the princess. 3 legendary beauties locked up in a dungeon. And that greasy Butcher Gray was about to go full horror movie on them with his brain-splattered hammer collection. Now, a normal prince would think about politics, intelligence extraction, maybe strategic leverage. Me? My brain went, pretty elf ladies in chains. I should claim jurisdiction over them. For the Empire. Obviously, so I pulled rank. Sent a messenger with a fancy sealed scroll basically saying, "These are mine now, hands off." You should have seen Gray's face. The man looked like he swallowed a whole lemon sideways. Beautiful. Here's the thing nobody in this stupid empire seems to realize. The elf queen is terrifyingly smart. While I was busy congratulating myself on being a genius, she was already down in that cell cooking up a plan to use my legendary horniness against me. She literally told her girls, "That man wants our bodies, and that's our weapon." The general wanted to bite her own tongue off rather than deal with me. The princess was crying in a corner, and the queen was out there giving a TED talk about seduction strategy. I have a feeling I'm walking into the most beautiful trap ever set. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. So there I was, third Prince Road, living my best life. Wine in one hand, reputation in the gutter, zero expectations from anyone in the imperial family. My older brother chops heads for fun. My second brother turns people into museum pieces like some kind of psycho taxidermist. And me? Everyone thinks I'm just the idiot prince who can't stop chasing skirts. Honestly, fair assessment. Then I heard the elves got captured. Not just any elves. The queen, her smokin' hot general, and the princess. 3 legendary beauties locked up in a dungeon. And that greasy Butcher Gray was about to go full horror movie on them with his brain-splattered hammer collection. Now, a normal prince would think about politics, intelligence extraction, maybe strategic leverage. Me? My brain went, pretty elf ladies in chains. I should claim jurisdiction over them. For the Empire. Obviously, so I pulled rank. Sent a messenger with a fancy sealed scroll basically saying, "These are mine now, hands off." You should have seen Gray's face. The man looked like he swallowed a whole lemon sideways. Beautiful. Here's the thing nobody in this stupid empire seems to realize. The elf queen is terrifyingly smart. While I was busy congratulating myself on being a genius, she was already down in that cell cooking up a plan to use my legendary horniness against me. She literally told her girls, "That man wants our bodies, and that's our weapon." The general wanted to bite her own tongue off rather than deal with me. The princess was crying in a corner, and the queen was out there giving a TED talk about seduction strategy. I have a feeling I'm walking into the most beautiful trap ever set. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. So apparently, the original Road, the guy whose body I'm now wearing like a rental suit, died in the most embarrassing way possible. This legendary playboy prince, terror of every wine cellar and brothel in the capital, got permission from his own father the emperor to go interrogate 3 captured elf beauties. The entire city knew what interrogate meant. Street dogs knew what it meant. This genius celebrated by drinking himself into a coma all night. Then this morning, on his way to go commit his crimes against elfkind, he stepped on an empty wine bottle on the stairs. His skull versus marble steps. Marble won. Game over. The most pathetic death in imperial history. Meanwhile, in a completely different universe, I was sitting at my desk, 48 hours of overtime. Instant noodles not even properly soaked, staring at a requirements document that was slowly eating my soul. Then my heart said, "Nah, I'm done," and I face-planted into my keyboard. Dead. Just like that. Next thing I know, some girl is shaking me like a broken vending machine and screaming in my face. My brain feels like someone's stabbing it with a fork, and I'm about 2 shakes away from throwing up on her. This is Honya, my personal maid. She's not crying because she loves me. She's crying because if the prince dies on her watch, they'll hang her. Touching. I finally get my eyes to focus and, hold on. Why is this girl dressed like she walked out of a Halloween costume stores? Sexy maid, section? Why are you dressed like that? She turned red as a tomato. You made me wear this. You personally designed this uniform and called it the finest scenery in the mansion. My brain helpfully replayed a memory of the old road handing sketches to a tailor with the creepiest grin imaginable. Cool. I inherited the body of a certified degenerate. I asked what we were supposed to do today. She reminded me, go interrogate the elf queen. Right. That thing. Then I made a fatal mistake. I asked if there were any documents or handover forms I needed to bring. You know, like a normal professional person would. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Documents? Since when do you need documents? So what do I bring? Your whip, candles, and those weird potions, she said, completely straight-faced, pointing at a massive black chest in the corner. I already packed everything. Want me to load it on the carriage? I looked at that box. I looked at the mirror, red hair, dark circles so deep they could store luggage, a face that screamed, I've made terrible life choices. I'm a dead office worker. Reborn as the horniest prince in an evil empire, about to visit 3 elf prisoners who were expecting a monster, carrying a box of things I don't even want to identify. This is fine. Everything is fine. I tried to bail. I really did. Hey Hongya, what if we just don't go today? My head hurts. Hangover. Very serious medical condition. Maybe tomorrow? She didn't even look up from fixing my collar. Just calmly reminded me that if I skipped day one of the job I literally fought to get yesterday, my muscle-brained older brother Leon would drag me to the training grounds for a sparring lesson. In the original Rhodes memories, Leon's sparring lessons are basically just him using you as a punching bag until he gets bored. Yeah, let's go to the prison, I said immediately. We walked outside where a full squad of imperial soldiers was waiting, all shiny armor and serious faces. And right in the middle, my carriage. Now, from the window upstairs it looked fancy. Dark gold roof, purple velvet curtains, big horses. Classy. Then I got close. Every single inch of that carriage door was covered in carvings of people, doing things. Very detailed things. Very creative things. It was basically a moving encyclopedia of positions I didn't even know existed. My eye twitched. The imperial carriages sure are extravagant, I managed. Hongya didn't miss a beat. That's your personal carriage, Dan Sha. You drew the designs yourself 2 weeks ago and made the craftsman carve every single one. I have no words. This man I'm possessing was truly committed to being the worst person alive. The inside of the carriage was even worse. I'm not going to describe it. Use your imagination. Now make it worse. There you go. As we rode along, more of the original Rhodes memories started flooding in like an unwanted Netflix recap of someone else's terrible life choices. Turns out, the whole useless playboy thing wasn't entirely stupidity. It was survival strategy. Big bro controls the army. Second bro controls the money. And Rhodes, born to a commoner palace maid, 0 connections, 0 resources. So he deliberately turned himself into such a pathetic waste of space that neither brother saw him as a threat worth killing. Honestly, not the dumbest plan. Problem is, he method acted so hard, he actually became the character. Dude partied himself into a body so wrecked that when I shifted in my seat, my lower back screamed at me like I was 80 years old. This body is cooked. If I keep living like the old road, I won't need assassins. I'll just die again from pure physical bankruptcy. Step 1. Fix this broken body. Step 2. Somehow survive in an empire where my brothers would happily murder me for sport. To distract myself from the existential crisis, I asked Hongya to brief me on the elf prisoners. She poured me tea and looked at me like I was an idiot, but started talking. Prisoner 1. Queen Selena. Supposedly hundreds of years old, but looks like a gorgeous mature woman. Apparently, every nobleman in the capital has been privately discussing her. Measurements. Hongya called her a scheming old witch in a hot body. Noted. Prisoner 2. Princess Aaliyah. The queen's daughter. Quote, pretty enough to walk out of a painting, and about as smart as one. Hongya basically described her as a sheltered rich girl who's never been punched by reality. Brutal assessment from someone in a maid outfit that barely qualifies as clothing. Prisoner 3. General Vera. Dark elf hybrid, dark skin, white hair, legendary temper. Chopped off a lot of imperial soldiers' heads on the battlefield. Hongya actually looked nervous talking about this one. So to recap my current mission, a dead office worker in a dead pervert's body. riding a pornographic carriage to a maximum security prison, about to meet an ancient scheming queen, a clueless princess, and a psychotic warrior woman who would love nothing more than to rip my throat out. And I don't even have a plan. I don't even have a working spine. This is going great. I tried to bail. I really did. Hey Hongya, what if we just don't go today? My head hurts. Hangover. Very serious medical condition. Maybe tomorrow? She didn't even look up from fixing my collar. Just calmly reminded me that if I skipped day one of the job I literally fought to get yesterday, my muscle-brained older brother Leon would drag me to the training grounds for a sparring lesson. In the original Rhodes memories, Leon's sparring lessons are basically just him using you as a punching bag until he gets bored. Yeah, let's go to the prison, I said immediately. We walked outside where a full squad of imperial soldiers was waiting, all shiny armor and serious faces. And right in the middle, my carriage. Now, from the window upstairs it looked fancy. Dark gold roof, purple velvet curtains, big horses. Classy. Then I got close. Every single inch of that carriage door was covered in carvings of people, doing things. Very detailed things. Very creative things. It was basically a moving encyclopedia of positions I didn't even know existed. My eye twitched. The imperial carriages sure are extravagant, I managed. Hongya didn't miss a beat. That's your personal carriage, Dan Sha. You drew the designs yourself 2 weeks ago and made the craftsman carve every single one. I have no words. This man I'm possessing was truly committed to being the worst person alive. The inside of the carriage was even worse. I'm not going to describe it. Use your imagination. Now make it worse. There you go. As we rode along, more of the original Rhodes memories started flooding in like an unwanted Netflix recap of someone else's terrible life choices. Turns out, the whole useless playboy thing wasn't entirely stupidity. It was survival strategy. Big bro controls the army. Second bro controls the money. And Rhodes, born to a commoner palace maid, zero connections, zero resources. So he deliberately turned himself into such a pathetic waste of space that neither brother saw him as a threat worth killing. Honestly, not the dumbest plan. Problem is, he method acted so hard, he actually became the character. Dude partied himself into a body so wrecked that when I shifted in my seat, my lower back screamed at me like I was 80 years old. This body is cooked. If I keep living like the old road, I won't need assassins. I'll just die again from pure physical bankruptcy. Step 1. Fix this broken body. Step 2. Somehow survive in an empire where my brothers would happily murder me for sport. To distract myself from the existential crisis, I asked Hongya to brief me on the elf prisoners. She poured me tea and looked at me like I was an idiot, but started talking. Prisoner 1. Queen Selena. Supposedly hundreds of years old, but looks like a gorgeous mature woman. Apparently, every nobleman in the capital has been privately discussing her. Measurements. Hongya called her a scheming old witch in a hot body. Noted. Prisoner 2. Princess Aaliyah. The queen's daughter. Quote, pretty enough to walk out of a painting, and about as smart as one. Hongya basically described her as a sheltered rich girl who's never been punched by reality. Brutal assessment from someone in a maid outfit that barely qualifies as clothing. Prisoner 3. General Vera. Dark elf hybrid, dark skin, white hair, legendary temper. Chopped off a lot of imperial soldiers' heads on the battlefield. Hongya actually looked nervous talking about this one. So to recap my current mission, a dead office worker in a dead pervert's body, riding a pornographic carriage to a maximum security prison, about to meet an ancient scheming queen, a clueless princess, and a psychotic warrior woman who would love nothing more than to rip my throat out. And I don't even have a plan. I don't even have a working spine. This is going great. Sitting in that carriage, I was having a full-blown existential crisis. Let me get this straight. I'm a guy who was mass-producing spreadsheets 12 hours ago, and now I'm supposed to walk into a maximum security dungeon and handle 3 royal elf prisoners, one of whom has been alive longer than most civilizations, one who could probably snap my neck with her thighs. Cool, cool, cool. Totally qualified for this. Then my eyes wandered downward and accidentally landed on Hongya's legs. The carriage was bouncing, and that skirt was not doing its job. The old Rhodes memories started playing in my head like an uninvited slideshow presentation from hell. What are you staring at? Hongya caught me instantly. Busted. I panic coughed and tried to play it off. You know what? Maybe put on a coat? It's Windy today. She looked at me like I'd just spoken alien. You designed this outfit. You said the whole point of bringing me outside was to make every man in the capital drool and showcase your taste. This man. This man. Every new thing I learn about Old Road makes me want to dig a hole and bury his reputation even deeper than it already is. That was before. It's cold. Cover up. I literally had to convince my own maid to wear more clothes. What kind of backwards universe is this? She pulled out a big black cloak, wrapped herself up like a burrito, and hit me with the most sarcastic, "Thank you for your kindness," I've ever heard. But I caught a tiny flash of genuine surprise in her eyes. Guess nobody's ever told her to put on more clothing before. Then we arrived at the prison, and, oh my God, giant black fortress. Iron spikes everywhere. The smell hit me like a physical wall. Blood, sewage, and moldy hay all competing for worst stink, champion. I slapped my hand over my nose so fast I almost punched myself. I leaned over to Hongya and whispered, "What's the protocol here? Royal etiquette? Some special greeting?" She gave me the most devastating side-eye of all time. "Are you asking about royal etiquette or your personal etiquette? There's a difference. Royal etiquette. Stand there looking important while they kneel. Your personal etiquette. You usually just start unbuckling your belt. Every young female official in the palace crosses the street when they see you coming. When you go out in the city, girls within a 3-mile radius would rather hide in garbage cans than risk being seen. And then the locked memories hit. The really bad ones. Like a dam breaking inside my skull. Scenes I wish I could bleach from my brain. Apparently the Old Road was such a predator that the busiest shopping street in the capital would go ghost town the moment someone yelled, "The third prince is coming." Women literally preferred hiding in slop buckets over being spotted by this guy. I inherited the body of the most hated man in the entire city. Outstanding. The prison gates opened and out walked Gray, the torturer from earlier, still wearing his blood-stained leather apron like it was casual Friday. He even had a little hammer in his hand, still dripping with. I don't want to think about what. He gave me the most disrespectful bow I've ever seen. Didn't even bend his knees. Just sort of. Nodded aggressively. Then started making snide comments about how a delicate prince might get hurt in such a rough place. The disrespect was loud. This guy was furious that I stole his elf prisoners yesterday, and he was making zero effort to hide it. But what was I going to do? Threaten him? With what? My hangover? My back pain? My devastating collection of pornographic carriage engravings? I've got no soldiers, no political power, no allies. Just a fancy title and a reputation so toxic it could kill plants. So I channeled my inner Old Road, puffed out my chest, and growled, "Shut up. I'm here on the Emperor's orders to interrogate the elf rebels. Lead the way." Gray's knuckles went white around that hammer. But he stepped aside. "Watch your step on the way down, Your Highness," he said with a smile that was about 90% murder. "Wouldn't want you to fall again." Was that a threat? Did this blood-soaked maniac just threaten me? While holding a brain hammer. While I have the physical constitution of a wet paper towel. This is going so well. While I was busy sweating bullets following Gray down the world's most depressing staircase, the 3 elf ladies were having a full-blown strategy meeting inside their cell. Not that I knew this at the time. I found out way later, and honestly, it's so funny I have to tell you what was happening on the other side of that door. Queen Selena, the supposedly graceful and gentle elf queen, was running a military briefing with the intensity of a corporate CEO before a hostile takeover. Except instead of quarterly earnings, the topic was me. When that prince walks in, she whispered to her girls, "I don't care how disgusting his requests are. You smile. You comply. You do whatever it takes. Our entire race depends on this." Princess Aaliyah, shaking like a chihuahua in a thunderstorm, somehow managed to nod and squeak out, "For the Silver Moon Forest, I'll do anything." Brave words from someone who looked like she might faint at any second. Then General Vera exploded. "You want US to seduce that degenerate? He's the most famous pervert in the entire capital. I'd rather let that butcher smash my skull." Selena shut her down hard. "Exactly because he's a brainless pervert, we have a chance. If either of the other princes had taken us, we'd already be dog food." Vera went quiet. Then through clenched teeth, "Fine. He can do whatever he wants to me. Just protect the queen and princess. Here's the part that kills me." Selena was sitting there doing mental calculations about which of them I'd want most. Her analysis? I'd probably go for Aaliyah first. Young, innocent, the fresh flower type. Or maybe Vera, the wild, exotic dark elf warrior, perfect for a conquest fantasy. Herself? She figured she'd be the backup option. The mature choice. And get this, the woman that every nobleman in the empire was drooling over? 300 years old and never even held a man's hand. Complete virgin. The whole, seductive fallen queen, reputation? Total fiction. She'd been keeping herself pure for magical bloodline reasons for 3 centuries. Also, plot twist, Aaliyah isn't even her real daughter. She's a chosen successor through some ancient ritual. This family tree is faker than my credentials for this job. Then Selena dropped the big noble sacrifice card. If he asks for anything really twisted or abusive, I'll step in and take it myself. I'm the queen. The dirtiest burden should fall on me. Aaliyah started crying. Selena immediately snapped. Stop crying. Predators love seeing prey cry. These women were preparing for war. Emotional armor on. Fake expressions loaded. Battle stations ready. They were expecting a monster. They were getting me. A dead office worker with back pain and zero game who just told his own maid to please put on more clothes. The universe has the most twisted sense of humor. Then the door slammed open, and Gray announced my arrival with all the enthusiasm of a man introducing his least favorite person on earth. Behold, your savior has arrived. The third prince, Lord Road, showtime. And I had absolutely no script. First things first, I had to deal with Gray. This blood-soaked maniac actually tried to stay in the room. He sidled up to me with his murder apron and his brain hammer, reeking like a slaughterhouse dumpster, and pitched me his sales offer. Your Highness, let me soften them up first. I'll be careful not to damage their faces or figures. You just relax, and when they're nice and obedient, you can have your fun. This psycho was literally offering to torture 3 women into submission as a courtesy service. Like a waiter offering to cut my steak. I fanned my nose dramatically. You're too loud. Get out. His smile froze. But he tried again. Something about professional interrogation and how the dark-skinned one bit off a guard's ear yesterday and blah 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 safety concerns. And here's where I discovered the one superpower that came with this garbage body. Being a shameless jerk is incredibly effective. I want to have a deep soul connection with these beautiful ladies, I announced with maximum arrogance. You, a large sweaty man, are ruining the mood. So I'm asking you, politely, to get out. Gray's face turned colors I didn't know human skin could produce. But he couldn't do anything. Because what's he going to do? Disobey a direct imperial order from a prince who's famous for being an unreasonable brat. The old Road's rock-bottom reputation was actually working for me. When everyone already thinks you're the worst person alive, there's zero social cost to acting like it. Fight fire with fire. Fight psychopaths with shamelessness. Works every time. Gray swallowed his rage and stomped out with his goons. Beautiful. I turned to Hongya with my smuggest face. Pretty slick, right? Did you see how I handled that? She stared at me with completely dead eyes. You've always been like this, right? Being a rude jerk isn't exactly a new skill for this body. That was just Tuesday for the old Road. Anyway, I turned toward the cell, squinted through the iron bars into the dim light, and finally got my first look at the 3 elves. My brain shut down. In the center, Queen Selena. Golden hair flowing everywhere like a shampoo commercial filmed in a dungeon. Her purple royal robe was torn to shreds, and the amount of skin on display was substantial. She stood there radiating pure, mature queen energy, somehow managing to look dignified and dangerously attractive while chained to a wall. On the left, Princess Aaliyah, huddled in a mossy corner, golden hair, green eyes, white dress soaked semi-transparent, crying so prettily it looked choreographed. Shoulders trembling, tears streaming, the full innocent maiden package. Central casting couldn't have done better. On the right, General Vera. Dark skin, silver hair, arms chained up high, battle scars all over her toned body, muscles defined like she bench-pressed trees for breakfast. And her eyes? She was staring at me like she was mentally rehearsing exactly how she'd rip my head off and use it as a bowling ball. My brain said, this is serious. These are political prisoners. You need a plan. My body said, tent mode activated. I actually had to bend forward slightly. In the middle of a dungeon. During what was supposed to be an intimidating imperial interrogation. I looked down at myself in absolute horror. Bro, this body. It just went to full alert the instant it detected attractive women in the vicinity. No warm-up. No thought process. Just straight-up biological treason. This wasn't a body. It was a heat-seeking missile with legs. No wonder everyone in the capital called this guy a degenerate. The man wasn't making choices. His body was making them for him. This wasn't a character flaw. This was a medical condition. And there I was, hunched over like I had a stomachache, in front of 3 women who were fully expecting me to be the worst monster they'd ever met. Great first impression, road. Really nailing it. My body was staging a full rebellion against my brain. There I was, hunched over like a question mark, trying to will away the most inappropriate physical reaction in the history of imperial interrogations. And Queen Selena? She noticed immediately. I could practically see the thought bubble over her head. Target acquired. He's even dumber than we hoped. She launched her attack. And by attack, I mean she started talking in this voice. This impossibly soft, honey-dripping voice. While doing this subtle hip twist thing against her chains that made her torn robe do things that should be classified as weapons of mass destruction. Oh, noble prince, please forgive us for greeting you in such a pitiful state. These crude chains prevent us from kneeling, but if you'd come a little closer, I could show my respect in other ways, my guy. My brain. It was melting. This woman has been alive for 300 years, and she was deploying every single one of those years of experience directly at my weak points. She even angled her neck to give me the full scenic view of her chest region. This wasn't flirting. This was psychological warfare with cleavage. Then Vera ruined the moment by absolutely losing her mind. You disgusting human trash. Stop looking at her with your filthy eyes. Just kill me already. Selena's head snapped toward Vera so fast, I thought she'd break her own neck. The seductive bedroom eyes vanished instantly, replaced with a death glare that screamed, I literally told you 5 minutes ago, Tio, shut up. You beautiful idiot. Vera got the message and clamped her jaw shut, but she kept staring at me like she was planning my funeral. Meanwhile, inside my skull, the debate raged on. Devil on my shoulder. Bro. 3 legendary beauties. One of them is actively offering. Just say yes. This is literally the dream. Angel on my shoulder. She's a queen who led a rebellion against an entire empire. She's 300 years old. She is playing you like a fiddle right now. You will die. Back pain. We hurt. Logic 1. Barely. This woman was not falling for me. She was fishing for me. I'm the worm, and she's the angler. And that beautiful body was the shiniest lure ever crafted. If I took the bait now, I'd wake up tomorrow with my throat slit and a polite note pinned to my chest in Elvish. So I did something that probably shocked everyone in that room, including myself. Ugh, you're all giving me a headache. Guards, unchain those 2. I pointed at Selena and Aaliyah. Hongya nearly had a heart attack. Your Highness, what if they attack? Relax. I cranked up the volume so everyone could hear, especially Selena. This is the imperial capital. My soldiers are everywhere. If any of them touches a single hair on my head, I guarantee their entire homeland won't have a single living creature by sunrise. Kill me, and their whole race dies with me. I think the clever queen can do that math. That was my power move. My one good line. I watched Selena's eyes flicker. Just for a second, something complicated passed through them. She was recalculating. Good. Let her recalculate. Let her realize that maybe, just maybe, this horny idiot prince has 2 brain cells to rub together. The prince jests, she purred, smile back in place. We're just fish on your cutting board. We wouldn't dare cause trouble. The guards unlocked them. Selena collapsed forward like her strings got cut, and Aaliyah dove to catch her. They ended up tangled together on the filthy floor, both gasping, clothes in ruins, skin glistening. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Look away. Look. Away. Then the guards headed toward Vera. Wait, wait, wait. I yelled, pointing at her. Leave that one on the wall. Everyone froze. She's a rabid dog, I declared, gesturing at Vera's murder face. If you let her down, she's going to bite me. And are you going to block her? No. Then let her hang there and cool off, Vera exploded. Spit. You human garbage. I don't want your fake mercy anyway. Just kill me. She actually spit blood at me. Classy. I just raised an eyebrow and turned away. You know what? Leaving the angry one on the wall was probably the smartest decision I've made since arriving in this world. Baby steps. Scores so far. Resisted seduction trap. Established I'm not a complete moron. Didn't get bitten by the feral elf. We're calling that a win. Selena was not giving up. The second Vera got shut down, she pressed her entire body against the iron bars like she was trying to phase through them. And behind her back, she was tugging on Aaliyah's skirt, basically screaming with her eyes, "Get over here and help me seduce this idiot." Poor Aaliyah shuffled forward looking like a baby deer, walking into traffic. She tried to copy Selena's seductive pose, but she was so bad at it. Trembling hands, tear-stained face, voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do anything you want, Your Highness. I can learn." And that's the thing. Her terrible attempt at seduction was somehow more devastating than Selena's professional-grade assault. The gap between obviously terrified virgin and trying so hard to be brave created some kind of forbidden contrast that nearly wiped out my remaining brain cells. My knees actually buckled. This body is broken. One cute face, and it's ready to shut down. If I actually tried to do anything physical right now, I'd literally die on top of a princess and become history's greatest punchline. Then I noticed the two guards. These poor guys were standing there sweating through their armor, desperately making eye contact with each other like, "What do we do? Is he about to? Here? Did the academy training cover this? What are you waiting for?" I snapped. "You want front row tickets or something? Get out. Be but your safety." Safety? Look at them. I pointed at 3 women in rags behind bars. "What are they going to do, sneeze on me? Go stand in the hallway. And if you hear me screaming, then you can come in and avenge my corpse. It's not that complicated." Everyone, the guards, Hongya, Selena, even Aaliyah, stared at me with the exact same expression. Something like, "This man is either the bravest person alive or the stupidest." It was definitely the second one. The guards fled. The iron door slammed shut. And suddenly it was just me, Hongya, and 3 elves in a very quiet, very tense dungeon. Then Selena made her move. She closed her eyes, grabbed the collar of her already wrecked robe, and started pulling it off. Aaliyah followed suit, eyes squeezed shut, shaking hands reaching for the ties on her dress. They thought this was it. The moment the horrible prince claims his prize. Hongya, veteran of countless such situations, immediately turned to face the wall like a professional. She'd clearly done the stare at the bricks while the boss does terrible things routine many, many times before. "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing?" I screamed so loud my voice cracked. "Stop. Everybody stop." Selena froze mid-strip, one eyebrow raised, robe dangling off her shoulder, an absolutely scandalous amount of everything on full display. "What exactly do you think I came here for?" I demanded, trying to sound dignified. "Am I really the type of person who only thinks about that?" Dead silence. Then Hongya slowly turned her head from the wall and delivered one single word with the precision of a sniper bullet. "Yes." I nearly coughed up blood. "My own maid. Betrayed by my own staff." "Shut up. Nobody asked you." I pointed at her, then dramatically clutched my chest. "I have a cold today." "Yes, a cold. Very dizzy. Not feeling it." "Everyone put your clothes back on and stop being weird." Then I hit them with my actual genius move. I stepped up to the bars, wagged my finger in Selena's face, and laid it out. "Don't even think about taking me hostage. If I die in here, the capital throws a 3-day fireworks festival. My brothers would love an excuse to slaughter your entire race and get rid of me at the same time. You'd be doing them a favor. I'm literally the worst person in this empire. Nobody would miss me for a second. The only reason you're still breathing is because I walked through that door. So maybe think about that before you try anything clever." I watched Selena's eyes shift. She was recalculating everything. Good. Now, the real play. Selena wanted to be my point of contact, the smooth-talking queen controlling the conversation. 300 years of wisdom, political experience, and manipulation skills? Yeah, no. Every word out of her mouth was a chess move wrapped in a lie wrapped in cleavage. I wouldn't trust her punctuation marks. So I looked past her, straight at the trembling princess hiding behind the queen's shoulder. Aaliyah, the innocent one. The one who couldn't lie if her life depended on it. The one whose every emotion played across her face like a movie screen. That was my way in. I pointed at her and grinned my most villainous grin. The queen can take a break. Today, I'll be personally interrogating the princess. Selena's composure cracked for just a fraction of a second. Aaliyah looked like she'd been struck by lightning. Checkmate, Your Majesty. You sent me the sales manager, but I want to talk to the intern. Selena was not giving up. The second Vera got shut down, she pressed her entire body against the iron bars like she was trying to phase through them. And behind her back, she was tugging on Aaliyah's skirt, basically screaming with her eyes, "Get over here and help me seduce this idiot." Poor Aaliyah shuffled forward looking like a baby deer, walking into traffic. She tried to copy Selena's seductive pose, but she was so bad at it. Trembling hands, tear-stained face, voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do anything you want, Your Highness. I can learn." And that's the thing. Her terrible attempt at seduction was somehow more devastating than Selena's professional-grade assault. The gap between, obviously terrified virgin, and trying so hard to be brave, created some kind of forbidden contrast that nearly wiped out my remaining brain cells. My knees actually buckled. This body is broken. One cute face, and it's ready to shut down. If I actually tried to do anything physical right now, I'd literally die on top of a princess and become history's greatest punchline. Then I noticed the two guards. These poor guys were standing there sweating through their armor, desperately making eye contact with each other like, "What do we do? Is he about to? Here? Did the academy training cover this? What are you waiting for?" I snapped. "You want front row tickets or something? Get out." But your safety. Safety? Look at them. I pointed at 3 women in rags behind bars. "What are they going to do, sneeze on me? Go stand in the hallway. And if you hear me screaming, then you can come in and avenge my corpse. It's not that complicated." Everyone, the guards, Hongya, Selena, even Aaliyah, stared at me with the exact same expression. Something like, "This man is either the bravest person alive or the stupidest." It was definitely the second one. The guards fled. The iron door slammed shut. And suddenly it was just me, Hongya, and 3 elves in a very quiet, very tense dungeon. Then Selena made her move. She closed her eyes, grabbed the collar of her already wrecked robe, and started pulling it off. Aaliyah followed suit, eyes squeezed shut, shaking hands reaching for the ties on her dress. They thought this was it. The moment the horrible prince claims his prize. Hongya, veteran of countless such situations, immediately turned to face the wall like a professional. She'd clearly done the stare at the bricks while the boss does terrible things, routine many, many times before. "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing?" I screamed so loud my voice cracked. "Stop. Everybody stop." Selena froze mid-strip, one eyebrow raised, robe dangling off her shoulder, an absolutely scandalous amount of everything on full display. "What exactly do you think I came here for?" I demanded, trying to sound dignified. "Am I really the type of person who only thinks about that?" Dead silence. Then Hongya slowly turned her head from the wall and delivered one single word with the precision of a sniper bullet. "Yes." I nearly coughed up blood. "My own maid. Betrayed by my own staff." "Shut up. Nobody asked you." I pointed at her, then dramatically clutched my chest. "I have a cold today." "Yes, a cold. Very dizzy. Not feeling it." "Everyone put your clothes back on and stop being weird." Then I hit them with my actual genius move. I stepped up to the bars, wagged my finger in Selena's face, and laid it out. "Don't even think about taking me hostage. If I die in here, the capital throws a 3-day fireworks festival. My brothers would love an excuse to slaughter your entire race and get rid of me at the same time. You'd be doing them a favor. I'm literally the worst person in this empire. Nobody would miss me for a second. The only reason you're still breathing is because I walked through that door. So maybe think about that before you try anything clever." I watched Selena's eyes shift. She was recalculating everything. Good. Now, the real play. Selena wanted to be my point of contact, the smooth-talking queen controlling the conversation. 300 years of wisdom, political experience, and manipulation skills? Yeah, no? Every word out of her mouth was a chess move wrapped in a lie wrapped in cleavage. I wouldn't trust her punctuation marks. So I looked past her, straight at the trembling princess hiding behind the queen's shoulder. Aaliyah, the innocent one. The one who couldn't lie if her life depended on it. The one whose every emotion played across her face like a movie screen. That was my way in. I pointed at her and grinned my most villainous grin. The queen can take a break. Today, I'll be personally interrogating the princess. Selena's composure cracked for just a fraction of a second. Aaliyah looked like she'd been struck by lightning. "Checkmate, Your Majesty. You sent me the sales manager, but I want to talk to the intern." I snapped my fingers and told Hongya to open the gate. Aaliyah needed to come out for questioning. I kicked a dusty wooden chair into position and did my best, "Come here, I won't bite" impression. Aaliyah shuffled out of the cell like she was walking toward her own execution. Her bare feet left little muddy prints on the stone floor. She looked at the chair, looked at me, looked at the chair again, verified I wasn't about to lunge at her, and then very carefully lowered exactly half of one butt cheek onto the seat. She'd been chained to a wall for over 24 hours. This was the first time she'd properly sat down since being captured. And the sound she made. Ha, just a sigh? Just a girl sitting down on a chair and exhaling. But it came out sounding like, look, the top-tier courtesans at the capital's fanciest pleasure house couldn't produce that sound after a full night of rehearsal. It was soft and breathy and relieved, and it hit my eardrums like a cruise missile. My scalp went numb. My body went to DEFCON 1. I had to physically pinch my own thigh under my coat to stay in control. You are here to investigate, not to reproduce. Get a grip, Road. Then Aaliyah realized what she'd just sounded like. Her face went from ghost white to tomato red in about 0.3 seconds. The blush spread down her neck. She clamped her legs together, straightened her back, placed her hands flat on her knees like a schoolgirl being inspected by the principal, and stopped breathing entirely. 2. Cute. Abort. Meanwhile, behind the bars, Selena was watching everything with the quiet satisfaction of a chess grandmaster. I could practically hear her internal monologue. Interesting. The pervert prince doesn't go for experienced seduction. He likes the innocent, clueless type. Aaliyah's terrible acting is accidentally perfect. We're winning. She even wandered over to Vera, who was still hanging on the wall like an angry decoration, and started massaging her legs. You tired? Selena whispered. I'm fine. I don't need that scumbag's mercy. He can leave me here forever. Selena ignored the tough talk and kept rubbing Vera's cramping muscles. SSSSSS. Vera sucked in air through her teeth, all her warrior pride deflating instantly. Could you get the left leg? It's cramping. Fearsome warrior woman, everyone. Absolutely terrifying. Out in the corridor, I pulled up another chair and sat across from Aaliyah with my best, serious interrogator face. Relax, princess. By imperial law, I'm supposed to be torturing you in solitary confinement right now. But I'm in a good mood, so we're just going to chat. The cell door's wide open. Feel free to discuss your answers with your queen. Honestly, I don't care about state secrets today. Aaliyah blinked at me with those enormous eyes, clearly thinking, what kind of interrogation is this? Then I turned to Hongya. Did you bring paper and pen? Come take notes. Hongya froze. Pointed at herself. Me? Take notes? And then something happened I did not expect. Her eyes went wide. Her chest started heaving. Not in a weird way. In an, oh my god, this is really happening way. See, I didn't know this at the time, but Hongya was actually trained from childhood in literature, languages, music, the whole package. She was supposed to be assigned to some important official as a useful aide. Instead, she got dumped on the original Road, whose only use for her was, well, you can guess, years of skills completely wasted. Every day just serving tea in humiliating outfits and being treated like a thing. And now this same man was asking her to pick up a pen, to do actual work, to use her brain. Yes, Your Highness, she snapped to attention so hard her heels clicked. Her voice echoed through the entire dungeon. She dove for the big black chest she'd packed this morning and started frantically digging for writing supplies. That's when things went very, very wrong. First, a dark red leather whip came flying out. Then, some kind of clamps with tassels on them clattered to the floor. Then, a long chain of metal beads went everywhere, rolling across the stone in every direction. Where is it? I know I packed a pen. Hongya was elbow deep in the box, tossing things left and right, sweating bullets. A bottle of mysterious purple liquid rolled across the floor and bumped gently against Aaliyah's bare foot. Aaliyah looked down at the bottle, then at the whip, then at the clamps, then at the beads, then at whatever other nightmarish objects were scattered across the floor like a horror museum yard sale. Her face went from red to white to actual green. She started shaking so hard the chair was vibrating. I was standing there wanting to die. No, wanting to die again. My toes were curling so hard inside my boots they could have drilled through the stone floor. Every single item rolling around on the ground was something the old Road had packed for his interrogation session, and each one was more incriminating than the last. I turned to Aaliyah with the most strained smile in human history. So, if I told you these were all for personal use, would you believe me? She did not believe me. All right, time to actually do the job. I put on my serious face, leaned forward, and hit Aaliyah with my opening question. So, princess, were you guys just bored, or did your brain stop working? Why exactly did you decide to rebel? Now, I was aiming that at Aaliyah, the quiet, easy target, the one who might actually give me a straight answer. Instead, the answer came from the wall. Who's bored? Vera detonated. Still chained up, hanging there like an angry chandelier, thrashing so hard the iron links were screaming. Her face was purple with rage, and she started ranting about starving children and eating tree bark, and Selena launched herself at Vera from behind, slapping both hands over her mouth and physically pressing her body against Vera to hold her still. The dignified queen mask was crumbling in real time. Her eyes were screaming, I begged you. I literally begged you to shut up. Do you want us all to die? I just sat there cleaning my ear with my pinky. Honestly, Vera's explosion was useful. I didn't even have to try hard. This woman's buttons are the size of dinner plates, and they're all labeled in big letters. Relax, queen, let her breathe. You're gonna suffocate her. I slouched back in my chair and turned to Aaliyah, who was clutching her skirt so hard her knuckles were white. So you weren't bored. You were hungry. Tell me more. And then Aaliyah's face crumpled up like a piece of paper. Even if we could eat, we'd never rebel. Her voice was thick with tears and snot. The empire keeps raising taxes every year. Last winter there was a massive snowstorm and all our crops died. We didn't even ask for disaster relief. But instead of lowering taxes, they doubled the grain quota. How were we supposed to pay that? My first instinct, and I'm ashamed to admit this, was pure corporate reflex. Well, even if conditions are tough, you should try escalating through proper channels before taking drastic action. I almost said it. The most disgusting middle management response possible. Thank God my survival instincts kicked in, because if those words had left my mouth, Vera would have chewed through her own arms to get free and murder me. And honestly, I would have deserved it. I turned to Hongye instead. Is any of this true? What's the tax situation? Hongye was doodling circles on her parchment. Without looking up, the official imperial tax code hasn't changed in 3 years. Official. I'm hearing a but. She finally looked up with an expression that said, congratulations on having one functioning brain cell. But the second prince levied a special border. Defense construction tax on the Silver Moon Forest last year. And the first prince requisitioned half their winter grain supply for military provisions. So let me get this straight. My two brothers, separately, using different excuses, basically robbed these elves blind during the worst winter in memory. One took their money, the other took their food, and when the starving elves got angry about it, the empire crushed them and called them the criminals. This is basically if your landlord doubled your rent during a flood, your boss cut your salary for office renovation fees, and then when you complained, they called the cops on you. As a former corporate slave who once got his bonus canceled because the company needed to invest in synergy, I felt this in my soul. Then something else caught my attention. Hold on, I said to Hongye. You're a maid who follows me around pouring tea. How do you know all this political stuff? The look she gave me could have peeled paint off walls. Gee, Deng Xiao, I wonder why you never noticed. Her voice dropped to a razor-sharp whisper. Maybe because for most of every day, my mouth was occupied. When you had me pinned on your desk, your carpet, and your carriage, you weren't exactly asking for my opinions on fiscal policy. She went back to doodling circles, adding through clenched teeth. I had a proper education, you know. I just stood there, absorbing the full weight of what the original road had done. This girl, educated, multilingual, politically informed, genuinely brilliant, had been reduced to wearing costumes and being used as a human stress toy by a man whose biggest intellectual achievement was designing pornographic furniture. The original road didn't just waste his own life. He wasted everyone around him too. I am going to fix this. I don't know how yet, but I am going to fix all of this. Right after I figure out how to survive the week. Aaliyah kept talking, and the picture got uglier by the second. Last winter, with their food already running out, my big brother Leon's army rolled up to the border. His supply officer basically told the elves, hand over your emergency winter supplies and half your dried food, or we call it treason. Not a request. An order. At gunpoint. So let me piece this whole scam together. Step 1. Brother number 2, the finance weasel, slaps a fake border defense construction tax on the elves and drains their savings dry. Step 2. Brother number 1, the muscle-brained warmonger, marches in and physically confiscates half their remaining food for military provisions. Step 3. And this is the part that made my blood genuinely boil. Brother 2's merchant buddies immediately set up black markets right on the border, selling the elves' own stolen grain back to them at insane prices. Some elves literally had to sell themselves into slavery just to buy food that was already theirs. It was a perfect closed loop. Rob them through policy, rob them through military force, then profit off their desperation. When the starving elves finally snapped and fought back, the Empire called it a rebellion and crushed them. My brothers got their land, their resources, and a convenient excuse to enslave the survivors. This was not complicated political intrigue. This was a mugging dressed up in official documents. Your brothers weren't even subtle about it, Hongya added with her trademark deadpan delivery. To the imperial court, elf territory is just livestock being fattened for slaughter. Nobody cares how the meat feels. Brutal? Accurate. I had nothing to add. But someone else did. From the dark corner of the cell, Selena's voice cut through the silence like a blade wrapped in silk. She'd been watching me this whole time. Not with seduction anymore. With calculation. The prince sees clearly, she said, standing straighter, letting her ruined robe slip off one shoulder without bothering to fix it. But this time the move felt less like flirtation and more like someone who simply did not care about modesty when survival was on the table. You obviously understand this was a death trap designed by your brothers. So tell me, Your Highness, you fought to take custody of us from the tribunal. Surely you did not go through all that trouble just to hear condemned prisoners complain. That question hit different. Because she was right. Why did the original road grab these prisoners? Everyone knew the answer, including me. But Selena was testing whether there was something more behind the mask of the perverted prince. She had spotted cracks. My genuine disgust at my brother's scheme. My embarrassment when Hongya called me out. Small things that did not match the monster she had been expecting. I felt her gaze drilling into me and instinctively pressed myself deeper into my chair. This woman was 300 years old, and every single one of those years was loaded into her stare like ammunition. My wrecked body actually flinched. But I could not show weakness. Not here. Not now. Watch your tone, Queenie. I straightened my ridiculous fancy robe and cranked up the bratty prince act. Everyone in the capital knows what I am. I took you from the tribunal because I wanted entertainment. What? You think I am some righteous hero here to clear your names? Do not make me laugh. Somewhere behind me, Hongya almost choked trying not to say something devastating. Aaliyah, who had briefly relaxed during our tax discussion, went pale again. Her hands flew to her chest protectively. She squirmed on her chair, clearly terrified that the nice moment was over and the predator prince was about to activate. Then from behind the bars, Selena coughed. Loud. Deliberate. A signal. Aaliyah flinched, remembered her orders, and something shifted in her eyes. A tiny spark of desperate courage. I am going for it, she screamed internally. I could practically see the thought bubble. She took a deep breath, lowered her protective hands from her chest, thrust out her modest figure in a terrible imitation of Selena's seductive posture, and forced a smile onto her face that was supposed to be alluring, but looked more like someone experiencing mild food poisoning. Why, Your Highness? If you really want to have fun. Her voice was shaking so badly, every word sounded like it might shatter. Aaliyah is willing. I can learn any position you want. She even tried to throw me a flirty wink. The wink malfunctioned. It came out as an eye spasm. Combined with her ghost-white face, trembling lips, and the expression of a kitten being forced to perform circus tricks, the overall effect was approximately 0% sexy and 1000% heartbreaking. My brain froze. My heart did something weird. Not lust, something worse. Something dangerously close to the feeling you get when you see a lost puppy trying to do tricks for a stranger just to avoid being kicked. I am a guy who worked himself to death in a cubicle. I spent my entire previous life being powerless, overworked, and disposable. Watching someone else desperately degrade themselves to survive hit a nerve I did not even know I had. I was genuinely about to say something soft. Maybe something kind. Maybe something monumentally stupid that would blow my whole evil prince cover story into pieces. Then salvation arrived from the most unexpected source. ACHO, Aaliyah sneezed. A big, loud, completely unladylike sneeze that echoed through the entire dungeon like a cannon shot. She slapped both hands over her face, horrified. Her carefully constructed seductress performance collapsed instantly. The dungeon was freezing. Her dress was basically wet tissue paper, and her body had simply given up pretending. I am so sorry, Your Highness. I did not mean to. I am just so cold. Thank God. That sneeze saved both of us. One more second of her sad puppy routine, and I genuinely might have done something stupid like being nice in front of witnesses. I grabbed the escape rope with both hands. Enough. Put away that ridiculous face. You look terrible. I waved my hand like I was shooing away a fly, then snapped my fingers at Hongya. Go tell the guards to bring food. Hot food. It came out sounding like an annoyed command from an impatient prince. But really, it was the only thing I could do without either crying or completely destroying my cover. Feed the freezing girl. Keep the mask on. Figure out everything else later. That is my entire survival strategy right now. One awkward decision at a time. I asked for hot food. What arrived was a war crime in a bowl. 2 guards hauled in wooden buckets and slammed down some chipped clay bowls on the floor. The smell hit me before I even looked down. Imagine the worst thing you have ever smelled. Now imagine that thing died, rotted for a week, and then someone heated it up and called it lunch. I looked into the bowl. Gray-brown sludge. Mysterious black particles floating on top. Unidentifiable root fragments poking out like tiny skeletal fingers. It was technically steaming, which meant someone had intentionally made this hot, which meant someone looked at this abomination and thought, yes, this is ready to serve. My pampered prince stomach did a backflip. The original Road had spent his entire life eating gourmet palace food and drinking top-shelf wine. This body was physically rejecting the mere proximity of prison slop. I opened my mouth to scream at the guards. I am a prince. A useless, perverted, universally despised prince, but still a prince. Bringing this garbage while I am conducting an official imperial interrogation is basically spitting in my face. Then I noticed the guards. They were standing there with their heads down, shoulders tight, exchanging nervous little glances. They looked guilty, but they also looked like they were following orders. Very specific orders. From someone who was not me. My alarm bell started ringing so loud I could barely think. This was Gray. Had to be. That blood-soaked maniac was testing me. Or maybe setting me up. If I exploded over the food, what happens next? Does he report to my brothers that the third prince is showing suspicious sympathy toward enemy prisoners? Does he use my outburst as ammunition for some political play I cannot even see yet? I have been in this body for less than a day. I have 0 allies, 0 information networks, and 0 understanding of who is watching me. Throwing a tantrum over soup quality when I do not know the full chessboard is exactly how stupid people get killed in places like this. So I swallowed my anger. Literally. I dropped my hand from my nose, put on my best bored playboy smile, and nudged one of the bowls with my boot. Looks fine. Nice and warm. Leave it and get out. The guards practically teleported out of the room. They could not believe their luck. Hongya gave me a strange look. Something between surprise and confusion. Then it vanished behind her usual poker face. Doesn't the smell bother you? She asked, pinching her own nose. This is called experiencing the struggles of common people. I replied, which is the most ridiculous thing I have ever said while trying not to vomit. Give some to the princess. Aaliyah had been staring at those steaming bowls since the moment they appeared. Not with disgust. With hunger. Raw. Desperate, barely contained hunger. Her throat was visibly swallowing. Her eyes were locked on that gray sludge like it was a 5-course feast. The second I gave permission, she abandoned all fear of me completely. No more trembling. No more cowering. She shot out of her chair, grabbed a bowl with both hands even though it was burning hot, whispered a quick thank you, and started drinking. Not sipping. Drinking. Huge, desperate gulps. The disgusting brown liquid ran down her chin and dripped onto her already ruined white dress, and she did not care even slightly. She finished the entire bowl in under 30 seconds and then licked the rim clean. I stared at her with my mouth hanging open. My stomach was trying to crawl out through my throat just from watching. That slop smelled like something you would use to punish people, and this girl had just inhaled it like it was the best meal of her life. Before I could say a single word, she grabbed the other 2 bowls and ran to the cell bars. She squeezed them through the gaps and called out to the others with genuine excitement in her voice. It is hot. Drink quickly. Selena took hers and drank steadily. Not frantically like Aaliyah, but not slowly either. Vera, still hanging from the wall, could not use her hands. Selena held the bowl up to her mouth, and Vera gulped it down sideways, brown sludge running down her neck. These were the three most important people in the entire elf nation. A queen, a princess, a general, and they were fighting over prison slop like it was Christmas dinner. Aaliyah came back and stood in front of me. The fear was gone from her eyes. In its place was something quiet and steady and infinitely more devastating. You probably think that was disgusting, she said, hands folded neatly in front of her. Her voice was calm now. No stuttering, no fake seduction, just truth. I could not respond. After the border blockade last winter, we ate every piece of bark and every root we could find. When those ran out, people mixed dirt with snow and swallowed it. The children stopped crying eventually, not because they felt better, because they were too weak to make sounds. Many of them froze to death in their sleep. She paused. Compared to what my people have been eating, that warm bowl of slop was a luxury. I sat there gripping the armrests of my stupid broken chair, so hard my knuckles turned white. These were not criminals. These were not rebels who got bored and decided to cause trouble. These were people who watched their children eat dirt and die in the snow. And when they finally picked up weapons, the Empire crushed them and called them traitors. My clever little interrogation opener about them rebelling because they had nothing better to do suddenly echoed in my skull like the cruelest joke ever told. I sounded exactly like every clueless executive I had ever worked for in my previous life. The ones who cut your salary and then asked why morale was low. Hongya had stopped writing. She was looking at the elves with an expression I had never seen on her face. No sarcasm, no eye rolling, just silence. Then Selena spoke from behind the bars. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and fixed me with those ancient, unreadable eyes. So, Your Highness, do you still believe we took up arms for fun? I had absolutely nothing to say. Not because I did not care. Because I cared too much, and I could not let anyone in this room know that yet. Selena hit me with that question, and I almost choked on my own spit. Those ancient eyes were full of genuine sorrow, and my stupid, soft, modern heart nearly cracked right open. In my previous life, I was the kind of guy who donated to every charity livestream and cried during pet adoption commercials. Watching actual starving people grateful for prison slop was destroying me from the inside. But I caught myself. My character right now is brainless pervert prince, not sympathetic hero who cares about oppressed minorities. If I show even a sliver of genuine compassion, Selena will latch onto it like a shark smelling blood and try to manipulate me into becoming her political puppet. And if word gets back to my brothers that I am showing sympathy toward rebel prisoners, my life expectancy drops to approximately -3 days. So I put my serious face back on. Queen, I was asking the princess. When I want your opinion, I will ask for it. Until then, please stop interrupting. Selena backed down immediately, but I saw that flash in her eyes. She had already noticed my hesitation. This fox had been reading people since before my great-great-great-grandparents were born. One micro-expression of pity, and she had filed it away in her mental database forever. She gave me a perfectly humble apology, threw in some self-deprecating comment about losing composure over half a bowl of bad soup, and even covered for Aaliyah by saying the girl was too sheltered. Every single word was calculated. Every pause was strategic. Talking to this woman was like playing chess against a computer that also happened to be incredibly attractive and mostly naked. I absolutely could not let her control the conversation. So I shut it down, turned back to Aaliyah, and kept asking questions until close to noon. Meanwhile, upstairs in his office, Gray was having a meltdown. I found this out later, but it is too good not to share. That psychopath had been pacing around his desk, chain-smoking cheap cigars, grilling the 2 food delivery guards about my reaction to the slop. He really did not flip the table, Gray kept asking, unable to process what he was hearing. That short-tempered idiot saw the pig food and just sat there. The guards were sweating bullets confirming that yes, the prince frowned. But no, he did not explode. He even let the elf princess drink the stuff. Gray's entire plan had been to provoke me into throwing a tantrum. Then he would write a nice report to my big brother saying the third prince was causing problems at the prison, and boom, my interrogation privileges get revoked and the elf prisoners go back under his hammer. Simple, dirty, effective. Except I did not take the bait. And now Gray was standing there scratching his meaty chin, wondering if maybe I had brain damage from that staircase fall. Which technically I did, since the original brain owner literally died and got replaced by an overworked office drone from another dimension. Then a messenger burst in telling Gray I was already leaving. 2 hours. I had spent barely 2 hours down there. Gray could not believe it. That was not enough time for a proper interrogation. It was not even enough time for what the old road usually did at the pleasure house. He grabbed his sword and scrambled outside to intercept me. I was standing in the sunlight doing the world's most satisfying stretch. After 2 hours in that freezing, stinking dungeon, fresh air felt like a religious experience. Behind me, Honya was lugging that enormous black chest of horrors with the most defeated expression I have ever seen on a human face. Gray came jogging down the steps with his goons, wearing a smile so fake it looked painful. Uglier than anything Aaliyah had produced during her disastrous seduction attempt, and that is saying something. Leaving so soon, Your Highness? Let me host you for lunch at the warden's dining hall. I looked him up and down with maximum contempt. You? Feed me? Based on the food standards I just witnessed in there, you would probably serve me boiled boot leather and call it steak. If I get sick eating your garbage, they would not have enough executioners for all of you. His face cycled through several shades of humiliated purple. But he kept pushing, switching to his real agenda with all the subtlety of a brick through a window. So, did the interrogation go well? Get any useful confessions? Oh, this greasy weasel. Fishing for information he could report to my brothers. Smooth. I got right in his face, close enough to see every pore on that ugly mug. I slapped his shoulder twice, hard, the way a bully reminds you who is in charge. Listen carefully, Warden Gray. I am not finished with those elves yet. I am coming back tomorrow. His eye twitched. And one more thing. I dropped my voice low, letting every word drip with menace. Until my interrogation is completely done, you do not touch those 3 prisoners. Not a finger. Not a scratch. If I show up tomorrow and find a single new mark on any of them, even a bruise, even a paper cut, I will personally make sure you spend the rest of your career inside a cage fighting dogs for table scraps. Classic villain line. Delivered with the confidence of a man who has absolutely zero actual power to back up any of these threats. But Gray did not know that. All he knew was that I had imperial authority and a reputation for being an unreasonable maniac. For once, being known as an unhinged lunatic was working entirely in my favor. I did not wait for his response. Maximum dramatic effect requires walking away before anyone can answer. I spun around, coat flapping behind me, and marched toward my pornographic carriage like I owned the whole city. Honya, get in. We are going home. I need a bath. I climbed inside, collapsed onto the velvet seat, and finally let out the breath I had been holding for what felt like 2 straight hours. Day 1 of being an evil prince. Complete. Nobody died. Nobody got assaulted. Nobody discovered I am actually a dead office worker from another universe. I call that an absolute victory. Tomorrow, though, I have to go back. And Selena will be ready. And Gray will be scheming. And Vera will still want to kill me. And my body will still betray me every time a pretty elf breathes in my direction. But at least tonight, those 3 women will eat in peace and sleep without a torturer standing over them. That is enough for now. The carriage rocked over the cobblestones like a cradle designed by someone who hated babies. I was melting into the velvet seat, trying to process the absolute dumpster fire that was my new life, while the original Rhodes memories kept playing in my head like a horrible movie marathon I could not pause. Every new memory made things worse. This body was a ticking time bomb wrapped in silk pajamas. 20-something years of non-stop drinking, gambling, and activities I refused to describe had turned what was probably once a healthy young man into a hollow shell running on fumes and bad decisions. My back hurt. My kidneys probably looked like raisins. My dark circles had dark circles. A strong breeze could probably hospitalize me at this point. And the political situation was somehow even more fragile than my physical health. Both brothers wanted me gone. The emperor considered me disposable garbage. The entire population of the capital city would throw a parade if I dropped dead tomorrow. I was basically a walking target with no bodyguard, no allies, and no plan beyond please do not let me die again. I set my personal mission statement right there in that ridiculous carriage. Step 1, survive. Step 2, fix this wrecked body. Step 3, figure out how to not get murdered by my own family. Step 4. Maybe, if I somehow accomplish steps 1 through 3. Deal with the 3 gorgeous elf prisoners and whatever complicated political nightmare they represent. Romance and adventure can wait. Breathing comes first. I opened my eyes, and they landed on Hongya. She was curled up in the opposite corner, wrapped in that big black cloak I made her put on earlier, hugging the chest of nightmarish toys against her body. Her chin rested on the edge of the case, and she was staring out the window at nothing. The original Rhodes memories about her surfaced automatically. They were ugly. Really ugly. She had been trained by the palace as a proper attendant, educated, multilingual, genuinely talented. Then she got assigned to this body's previous owner, who treated her like she was not even human. A tool for venting anger and satisfying urges. Hit her when annoyed. Used her when bored. Made her wear humiliating outfits as some kind of sick power trip. By every logical measure, she should be terrified of me. But down in that dungeon, she had talked back, rolled her eyes, made sarcastic comments, and basically roasted me to my face multiple times. Something did not add up. She caught me staring. Not a flinch. Not a shiver. Just those flat, empty eyes turning toward me like security cameras. Why are you looking at me like that? Thinking up some new way to torment me, I ignored the jab. Leaned forward instead. Hongya, I noticed something in the dungeon. You do not seem afraid of me. At all. She blinked once. Would you like me to pretend? That is not what I mean. This morning when I fell down the stairs, you were crying your eyes out, shaking me like crazy. Now you are acting like I am furniture. What changed? Her eyelashes dropped. She pulled the case closer to her chest. When she spoke, her voice was completely flat. No warmth. No fear. Just facts. You think I was crying for you? She let that question hang in the air like a guillotine blade. I was crying for myself. And for my parents and my 12-year-old brother. Her words came out slow and precise, every syllable bitten off clean. You are a prince. If you die stupidly on a staircase, the tribunal does not just punish you. They come after me. Your personal maid, clearly negligent. They would hang me. Torture me first, probably. And under the Empire's guilt by association laws, my family goes down too. My parents are already doing hard labor in the mines. My little brother is 12. All of them would be executed because their daughter failed to prevent a drunk idiot from tripping over a wine bottle. She looked straight at me. I am not afraid of you dying. I am afraid of you dying and dragging my entire family into the grave with you. Clear enough? The carriage suddenly felt very small and very quiet. My face was actually getting hot. The original Road had managed to weaponize his own death. Even dying was dangerous to the people around him. What an incredible legacy of garbage. I tried to recover. Pretty bold words for a servant. You are not worried I might throw you out of this carriage right now? Go ahead. She turned back to the window. I am tired. Every day I wake up dreading what new degrading thing you will make me do. Every day I walk through the streets in these clothes while people whisper and point. I cannot fight back. I cannot even kill myself, because if I die suspiciously, my family dies too. So honestly, I do not care anymore. She straightened her spine and looked at me with eyes that held absolutely nothing. If you are going to be angry, just kill me now. If I die from angering you, the tribunal will blame me alone. My parents and brother might survive that. So go ahead. I am ready. I stared at this girl who was literally offering her life to protect her family from my existence. Not from anything I had done today. From what this body represented. What it had always represented. A walking natural disaster that destroyed everything it touched. I sighed, rubbed my temples, and made the mistake of almost being honest. What if I let you go? Free you from service. Give you money. You could leave the capital and start over somewhere. Her eyes went wide for exactly 1 second. Then the hope collapsed into something colder than before. Go where? I am a criminal's daughter with no identity papers. The moment I leave the city, any guard can arrest me as a runaway slave. Best case, I get sold to the lowest brothel in the empire. Worst case, executed on the spot. She stared right through me. If you really have a heart, just give me a quick death. My mouth opened. Words piled up on my tongue like traffic. I wanted to promise her everything. I will never hurt you. I will protect you. I am different now. I am not him. But I swallowed every single word. Because what right did I have? I had been inside this body for less than 1 day. The original Road spent years breaking this girl. Years of pain do not get erased by 1 afternoon of not being terrible. Making pretty promises right now would just be another form of cruelty. Another manipulation from the same face that had tormented her for so long. Actions, not words. That was the only currency that would ever mean anything to someone like Hongya. So I shut my mouth, turned to the window, and said nothing. The silence stretched across several city blocks. Hongya watched me the entire time, waiting for the explosion that never came, waiting for the punishment she had rehearsed for, waiting for the monster to return. Finally she spoke, barely above a whisper. "You are different today." I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" She did not answer. But for the first time since I had opened my eyes in this world, I saw something other than emptiness in her expression. It was not trust. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was curiosity. And right now, that was enough. Hongya stared at me for an uncomfortably long time. Up and down and up, like she was trying to find the seam where the alien had crawled inside the human suit. Then she delivered her verdict. "You have not taken your pants off all morning. That is the biggest difference." I nearly slid off my seat. That was her metric. That was the baseline for normal behavior in this body. Did he remove his pants today? Yes or no? The bar was literally on the floor, and the original road had still been digging underneath it with a shovel for 20 years straight. I coughed and tried to salvage some dignity. Can a man not simply have a moment of enlightenment? Maybe I have decided to cultivate myself, improve as a person, grow spiritually. Her mouth twitched. The expression was pure. "Please continue lying. This is entertaining." I needed a cover story. I could not exactly tell her the truth, which was that this body had been so thoroughly destroyed by years of debauchery that one more romantic encounter might literally stop my heart. I died at my desk from overwork in my previous life. I was not about to die in bed from overplay in this one. That would be the most embarrassing pair of deaths in the history of any universe. So I went with something that sounded philosophical, but was actually just survival instinct wearing a fancy hat. "Hongya, listen. When I hit my head on those stairs this morning, I had a revelation. I folded my hands together and put on my wisest face. Pleasure requires capital. The body is the foundation of all enjoyment. If this vessel breaks down, I could have every beauty in the empire lined up at my door, and all I could do is stare. Therefore, the path to maximum future enjoyment is present restraint, conservation, strategic recovery. You understand? I am not quitting. I am investing." I was honestly pretty proud of that speech. It perfectly fit the character of a degenerate prince who wanted to keep being degenerate but smarter about it. No suspicious moral transformation, just basic self-preservation rebranded as lifestyle optimization. Hongya tilted her head slightly. Then she dropped a bomb with the emotional delivery of someone reading ingredients off a soup can. "So you cannot do it anymore. Is that what you are saying?" My face turned the color of raw beef. I launched myself off the seat so fast that my destroyed lower back seized up like a rusty door hinge, and I collapsed right back down, grabbing my spine and hissing through my teeth like a dying snake. "Nonsense," I roared while literally unable to sit up straight. "I am in peak condition. I am choosing restraint. Do you understand the concept of saving your energy for maximum impact? This is strategy." She watched me howling and clutching my back with absolutely zero expression on her face. Then after a long, devastating pause, she said quietly, "I bet you cannot last 3 days. This girl. This absolute menace of a human being. She just made a bet with her own master. The same master who, 24 hours ago, could have had her whipped for breathing wrong. She was either incredibly brave or had genuinely stopped caring whether she lived or died. Probably both. But my competitive instinct from my previous life kicked in hard. Nobody bets against me and wins. I once stayed awake for 3 straight days to meet a deadline that my boss changed anyway. 3 days without touching a woman? For a dead guy running on borrowed time in a broken body? That was practically a vacation. "Deal," I said, crossing my arms. 3 days. If I lose, I lose. But if I win, you owe me one wish. Her grip on the leather case slipped slightly. She recovered it and gave me the look you would give a dog that just tried to open a door by running into it repeatedly. How is that any different from normal? You win or lose, I still do whatever you say. She started counting on her fingers. Making tea, your decision. What I wear, your decision. Whether I wear anything, your decision. Which room I sleep in and what position I sleep in, your decision. If you want something, you just order me to do it. Why are you going through this whole circus of a bet just to end up at the same place? She had a point. She had such a devastatingly good point that I sat there with my mouth open for a solid 10 seconds, trying to find a flaw in her logic. Your reasoning is annoyingly solid, I finally admitted. She almost smiled. Almost. Then she pulled the cloak tighter and let me sit in my defeat. The carriage kept rolling. I was staring out the window, mentally sorting through priorities, when something hit me so hard I slapped my own thigh loud enough to make Hongya jump. Oh no. I almost forgot something huge. I shoved my head out the carriage window like a golden retriever on a highway and screamed at the driver. Turn around. Head for the palace. I need to see the emperor. My father. I need to see my father. The driver nearly fell off his seat. The entire guard escort whipped their heads around in perfect unison, every face displaying identical expressions of pure shock. Like I had just announced I was going to fly to the moon using only my arms. Hongya's eyebrows furrowed so hard they nearly touched. When I pulled my head back inside, she was looking at me like I had just proposed marriage to the horse. You want to see the emperor? You? The person who normally runs the other direction whenever His Majesty is even mentioned? That was the old me. I straightened my crumpled collar with great authority. Today is day one of an important assignment. Of course I need to report to my superior. First day on the job, you check in with the boss. Basic workplace etiquette. The words came out before I could stop them. Workplace etiquette. Report to my superior. Check in with the boss. Pure corporate drone vocabulary leaking through the prince disguise like water through a paper bag. Hongya went quiet for a very long time. I could practically hear the gears grinding inside her skull as she tried to reconcile 20 years of knowing a brainless pervert with the man currently sitting in front of her talking about professional responsibility and strategic celibacy. Finally, she spoke, and her voice carried the weight of someone who had exhausted every rational explanation. Are you possessed by something? I mean, technically, yes. She was more right than she could possibly know. But I just waved her off and started rehearsing what I would say to the emperor, who I had never met, in a palace I had never visited, playing a character whose entire personality was the opposite of mine. No big deal. Just another Monday in my new life. I jumped out of the carriage before it fully stopped, nearly snapped my ankle on the cobblestones, and started speed-walking toward the palace gates like a man possessed. Hongya stuck her head out the window yelling something about changing clothes first, but I waved her off. No time. Corporate instinct was screaming at me louder than any maid ever could. Rule number 1 of surviving any organization. When you get a new assignment, you report to the boss on day 1. You do not wait. You do not let someone else tell the story first. You show your face, you say something vaguely competent, and you make sure the guy at the top knows you exist and are theoretically working. This applies to office cubicles, and apparently it applies to medieval empires too. The palace hallways were gorgeous. Massive stone corridors, polished floors, ornate pillars. Very impressive architecture. Would have enjoyed the tour if the staff had not started evacuating the moment they spotted my red hair. The first maid saw me coming and literally dove behind a pillar. Her fruit tray went flying. Apples everywhere. 2 more maids who had been polishing a railing threw their rags into a bucket and sprinted for the side chambers like I was a natural disaster with legs. One of them was holding her skirt up so high while running that she probably would have been embarrassed if she was not so busy being terrified. I checked the original Rhodes memories to understand why I apparently had the same effect on palace women as a fire alarm. The answer was exactly what I expected. Every single time the old Rhode visited the palace, he would grab any pretty servant he spotted by the waist. Sometimes he would march straight into his father's meeting room and demand to take home whichever female official caught his eye, like he was ordering takeout. He did this so many times that the entire young female staff of the imperial palace had developed a Rhode detection early warning system. The moment that red hair appeared at the far end of any corridor, every woman under 40 vanished like smoke. I am not a prince. I am a walking evacuation drill. I reached the emperor's study. Giant oak doors, 3 stories tall, designed to make visitors feel small. The guards pushed them open and I stepped inside. There sat my father, the emperor, slouched in an oversized chair by a roaring fireplace, looking like a retired gangster who had gotten comfortable. And standing beside him, holding a stack of account books, was my second brother Vincent. Thin, sharp, wearing a monocle that made him look like he calculated the value of human life in spreadsheet format, which, based on what I knew about him, was probably accurate. My brain frantically searched the original rote's memory for court etiquette. Kneel on one knee, right fist to chest, head slightly bowed, say the magic words. Simple enough. I strode forward with confidence, dropped to one knee, and my kneecap hit the stone floor with a crack so loud it echoed off the ceiling. My leg almost buckled, and I nearly face-planted into the imperial carpet. I caught myself at the last second, shoved my fist against my chest, and forced the words out through gritted teeth. Your son greets the emperor. Dead silence. The old man froze with his teacup halfway to his mouth. Vincent closed his account book and studied me over his monocle like I was a particularly unusual insect. Did you take the wrong medicine today? The emperor asked. I stood up and casually dusted off my knee, pretending my kneecap was not currently filing a complaint with my nervous system. What do you mean, father? A son greeting his father according to proper ceremony. Perfectly normal. The emperor set down his tea and leaned forward with the expression of a man watching a dog walk on its hind legs for the first time. Last time you came to this study voluntarily, you wanted a specific palace mate. Time before that, you wanted money. So which is it today? Who caught your eye this time? Beautiful. Even my own father assumed every visit was either about women or cash. The original road had set expectations so low that showing basic professional responsibility was being treated as a sign of mental illness. Neither, father. I straightened my posture, clasped my hands in front of me, and deployed my best middle management reporting voice. Yesterday, I accepted the assignment to interrogate the 3 elf prisoners. Today was my first session. I am here to provide a progress update, as proper procedure requires. The study went so quiet I could hear the charcoal popping in the fireplace. The emperor slowly turned his head to look at Vincent. Vincent adjusted his monocle and said nothing. They exchanged a glance that clearly communicated, is he dying? Has he been cursed? Should we call a physician? You actually interrogated them? The emperor sank back into his chair, face full of pure disbelief. I assumed you just wanted an excuse to drag them back to your mansion and play with them. There it was. The emperor of the entire realm, my own biological father, had handed me 3 high-value political prisoners fully expecting me to assault them. Not because he cared about justice or intelligence gathering. Because he thought letting his degenerate son violate the elf queen was a funnier punishment than execution. An extra layer of humiliation for a conquered people. I kept my expression neutral while my stomach turned over. This empire was rotten from the very top. The emperor casually discussed using sexual violence as a diplomatic insult. Vincent stood there calculating profits from enslaving an entire race. And somewhere out there, Leon was probably bench-pressing a horse and dreaming about his next military campaign against defenseless civilians. And me? The designated family clown. The court jester whose only expected contribution to the empire was being so pathetic that everyone else looked better by comparison. But right now, that low expectation was my greatest asset. Nobody watches the fool. Nobody suspects the fool. Nobody bothers blocking the fool's moves, because they assume the fool has no moves to make. I had walked into the most dangerous room in the empire, containing 2 of the most powerful people alive, and neither of them considered me worth worrying about for even 1 second. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Now I just had to keep it that way while quietly figuring out how to not die. I smiled my dumbest smile and started my report. I scrambled up from that knee like nothing happened, slapped on my best idiot grin, and shuffled closer to the emperor like a golden retriever who just knocked over a vase but still wants a treat. Father, come on. Even a screw-up like me knows to report in before goofing off. First day on the job, gotta show my face. Cannot have you saying I am slacking. The old man looked me over with that expression parents make when their worst child accidentally does something right. Half suspicious, half amused. Like watching a cat use the toilet for the first time. Huh. Sun must be rising from the west today. Good. He was entertained. Entertained emperors do not execute people. I pushed forward while the mood was warm. So father, quick question. Those 3 elves, what is the actual plan? Are we going through the motions before chopping heads? Or do you want them alive for something? Just need to know which direction to steer things. He waved his hand like I had asked about the weather. They are just long-eared peasants. Could kill them tomorrow and nobody would blink. But that queen has some name recognition among the border tribes, so do not make it too ugly. Beyond that, do whatever you want. Then he slouched deeper into his throne and dropped his personal philosophy on conquered peoples. Basically, Push them until they snap, then blame them for snapping. This wisdom apparently applied to elves, humans, and presumably anyone else unlucky enough to exist near his empire. He seemed genuinely puzzled that creatures who lived hundreds of years could still make bad decisions. As if longevity should automatically come with the wisdom to enjoy being robbed quietly. I noticed Vincent tense up slightly when the conversation touched on why the elves rebelled. His fingers tapped his account book a little faster. Mr. Finance was sweating behind that monocle because he knew exactly whose special tax had been the final straw. If I mentioned it right now, even casually, the Emperor might start asking uncomfortable questions about where all that money actually went. But I did not mention it. Not because I was protecting Vincent. Because I had something much better planned. I clapped my hands together like I had just heard the most inspiring speech of my life. Father, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Rebels deserve what they get. But we are not savages, right? We are the mighty Kalandian Empire. We need proper procedure. Recorded confessions. Signed documents. The full legal package. Let every vassal state see that our empire crushes rebels and fills out the paperwork. That is what civilized power looks like. I was laying it on so thick you could spread it on toast. But the old man ate it up like breakfast. He actually pointed at me with approval. Approval. From the Emperor. For me. The son he had written off as a biological accident with legs. You actually said something smart today? Fine. They are yours. Run the interrogation however you want. Write up whatever results you see fit. If you cannot write it yourself, I will find someone to help. And whatever you do with those women in the meantime is your business. Jackpot. He basically just gave me a blank check. Full control of the interrogation. Full control of the prisoners. Full control of the narrative. I could write any conclusion I wanted, and the Emperor would stamp it. This was more power than the original Road had held in his entire worthless life, and I got it by doing something revolutionary. Showing up and acting professional. Vincent was watching me from behind that monocle with an expression I did not like. His face showed nothing, but I could feel the gears turning. This was not the drooling idiot brother he was used to. I was speaking in complete sentences, using political vocabulary, and demonstrating something dangerously close to competence. His internal alarm system was definitely pinging. But I was not done yet. I had one more card to play, and it was my favorite. I scratched the back of my head and put on my most innocent face. The face of a man about to commit verbal murder while smiling. Oh, one more tiny thing, Father. Almost forgot. I met the warden today, Mr. Gray. What a guy. Incredible public servant. So dedicated to his duties. That prison runs like a fortress under his command. Honestly, I felt like a guest in his house, not the other way around. My authority as a prince did not even come close to his. The man has presence. I was grinning ear to ear. Thumbs up. Maximum sincerity. The Emperor's smile started to fade. He gave you attitude? You are a prince. No, no, no. Father, please. I am complimenting him. He is just very professional. Very strict. The Empire needs men like that. Law enforcement should be tough and unyielding. The more I praised Gray, the darker the Emperor's expression got. Because he was not hearing compliments. He was hearing, a prison warden disrespected my son, which means he disrespected me. Then I twisted the knife. Casually. Almost as an afterthought. Oh, and speaking of Gray's excellent management. Father, you will not believe the lunch situation down there. The food he served the elf queen was absolutely remarkable. I have never smelled anything so foul in my life. Genuine pig slop. I am still burping that flavor. But honestly, credit to Gray for treating all prisoners equally regardless of status. No special treatment. That is integrity right there. I kept my voice cheerful. Kept my face bright and admiring. But every word was a precision-guided missile aimed directly at Gray's career. The Emperor was not thinking about prisoner meals. He was thinking about face. His son went to that prison representing imperial authority. Gray did not even bother pretending to show respect. And feeding slop to a political leader from a vassal state? If other subject nations heard about that, they would think the empire was either broke or barbaric. Neither was acceptable. Vincent read the room instantly and moved in. Father, prison funding is fully allocated every month. If Gray cannot provide basic meals, there may be embezzlement in the system. I will send auditors immediately. Beautiful. My brother was throwing Gray under the bus without me even asking. Because for Vincent, this was a free opportunity to extend his financial oversight into the prison system. More audits meant more control. I had just handed him a gift wrapped in righteous indignation. I waved my hands frantically. No, no, big brother, please do not. I was praising Gray. If you investigate him because of me, people will say I am petty and vindictive. I would look so bad. The harder I protested, the more suspicious the emperor became. Classic reverse psychology. I learned this from office politics. When you want something investigated, you loudly insist it should not be investigated. Works every single time. Investigate. The emperor's voice left zero room for debate. Your brother handles finances. Auditing prison accounts is perfectly within his authority. Cannot have people thinking they can skim money just because nobody is watching. Vincent bowed. As you command, father. And just like that, Gray was finished. Not today, not tomorrow, but the clock was ticking. Imperial auditors would descend on his prison like locusts, and whatever dirty money he had been pocketing would surface. All because I smiled and said nice things about him in front of his boss's boss. You want to play games with me, Gray? Send me pig food and try to provoke me? I do not carry hammers. I do not swing whips. I use words, timing, and the fragile egos of powerful men. Welcome to Corporate Warfare, Medieval Edition, and I am Employee of the Month. I stepped out of the Emperor's study feeling like a man who had just survived a job interview conducted by a tiger. 1 foot over the threshold, and I heard dress shoes clicking on marble behind me. Third brother, wait up, Vincent. My dear second brother. The human calculator with the monocle and the smile that never quite reached his eyes. He caught up to me and started brushing imaginary dust off my shoulder like we were best friends. Like he had not engineered the financial destruction of an entire race last winter. What a surprise seeing you report to father voluntarily. I almost did not recognize you. I cranked up the village idiot charm to maximum. Scratched my messy red hair, laughed like a moron, told him I just wanted to look responsible for once. He asked about the interrogation, specifically whether the elves mentioned why they rebelled. This was not casual curiosity. He was checking whether I had stumbled onto his tax scheme and blabbed to the emperor about it. I dodged the question like a professional, waved my hand dismissively, and said who cares why they rebelled, rebels get chopped, end of story. Then I leaned in close, lowered my voice, and deployed my secret weapon, embarrassing honesty. Brother, promise you will not laugh. I drank too much last night, and today I could not perform. Spent all morning in that dungeon staring at 3 gorgeous elves, and my body just would not cooperate. If this gets out, my reputation is finished. Vincent stared at me for 1 second. Then he laughed. Really laughed. His whole body relaxed. The suspicion drained from his face like water from a bathtub. So that is why you came to report to father. You were too weak to do anything. So you used work as a cover story to save face. I coughed awkwardly, and neither confirmed nor denied. Let him believe whatever made him comfortable. The dumber he thought I was, the safer I would be. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small silk pouch. He shook out several dark brown pills and held them toward me with a brotherly smile. You ran out again, did you not? Don't be shy about asking. My brain exploded. The original Rhodes memories activated like a fire alarm. These pills. He had been taking them for over 6 months. Monthly supply from dear brother Vincent. Every time he swallowed them, he felt incredible. Boundless energy. Superhuman stamina. The old Rhodes genuinely believed his second brother was the most thoughtful person in the empire for providing these magical supplements. But standing there holding those pills with my modern brain fully engaged, my spine turned to ice. 3 brothers locked in a succession war. One is a powerless degenerate. The other conveniently provides mysterious medicine that makes said degenerate even more addicted to destructive behavior. Medicine from an unknown source with unknown ingredients taken for half a year straight. This body's condition suddenly made perfect sense. The catastrophic kidney damage. The back pain. The dark circles deeper than mine were before I died of overwork. The complete physical collapse of a man barely in his 20s. This was not natural deterioration from partying too hard. This was chemical sabotage. Vincent was not helping his little brother. He was slowly poisoning him. Keeping him weak, keeping him addicted, keeping him trapped in a cycle of debauchery so severe that nobody would question it when the third prince eventually dropped dead from excess. No assassination needed. Just a helpful big brother and some special pills. I wanted to throw those pills in his face. I wanted to grab his monocle and shove it somewhere educational. But I kept every molecule of rage locked behind the biggest, dumbest grin I could produce. Brother, you are literally saving my life. I clutched that pouch like it contained diamonds, practically vibrating with fake excitement. I was rationing my last two and suffering. This is exactly what I needed. Vincent patted my shoulder warmly. Take them regularly. Don't rush the elf business. Your body comes first. They are not going anywhere. Translation: keep poisoning yourself, stay useless, and please continue being the family embarrassment so I never have to worry about you competing for the throne. We said our goodbyes. He walked east. I walked south. The moment our backs were turned, both our smiles disappeared simultaneously. His became cold calculation. Mine became something I did not yet have a name for, but it burned. I tucked those pills away. I would never swallow a single one. But I would absolutely pretend to. Outside the palace gates, my pornographic carriage was waiting. But something was wrong. Two palace guards had cornered Hongya against the carriage door. One had a thick beard, the other was skinny. The bearded one was running his mouth about how everyone knew what kind of girls worked for the third prince. The skinny one was physically grabbing her arm. Hongya was clutching her cloak shut with white knuckles, trying to pry his fingers off with her other hand, face burning red. Come on, sweetheart. Working for the third prince means you are basically public property, right? I kicked the skinny one so hard, he went airborne. He landed face first on the cobblestones and skidded. Beautiful distance. Olympic form. 100 military lashes, I announced, adjusting my pants leg. The bearded one snapped to attention so fast his spine cracked. The skinny one was scrambling on the ground like a beetle flipped on its back. Your Highness, we were just joking. Do I look like I am joking? They ran. Literally ran, dragging each other toward the barracks like their lives depended on it, which they did. In the carriage, Hongya huddled in her corner, chin buried in her cloak. I asked if this happened often. She said they usually kept their hands to themselves, but always ran their mouths. Because the original Rhodes' reputation had turned every woman in his household into a target. The entire city assumed his servants were fair game. That is your fault, she said, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. Not crying, just stating facts. She was right. The original Rhodes had branded every woman near him as disposable entertainment. They could not walk down the street without some stranger making comments. They could not stand beside a carriage without guards assuming they were available. All because their master treated them like objects and the world took notes. I sat there grinding my teeth. Then an idea hit me. Disgusting, brilliant, and perfectly fitted to my character. Next time someone bothers you, tell them you are carrying my child. Silence. Hongya's face went through confusion, disbelief, and some unclassifiable emotion between gratitude and revulsion. You think that terrible idea is clever, don't you? Tell me it would not work. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, then pulled her cloak over her face and said nothing, which in Hongya language meant I had won the argument, and she absolutely hated it. Back at the mansion, the kitchen served dinner. I sat at this massive dining table poking a fancy meat steak covered in berry sauce. My first full meal in this new body. It looked beautiful. Rich people food. The kind of plate that would make my old co-workers weep into their instant noodles. It tasted boring as hell. Just salt and sweet. No depth. No spice layers. No complexity. If this was the best food a prince could get, then regular citizens were probably chewing bark and calling it dinner. My modern brain immediately started scheming about introducing soy sauce, MSG, and hot pot to this medieval economy. One food cart on the main shopping street, and I could probably buy a second mansion within a month. But then reality slapped me. My body could barely survive a flight of stairs. Two psychopath brothers were actively trying to destroy me. One was literally poisoning me with mystery pills. Getting into the restaurant business was maybe step 47 on my survival checklist. Step 1 was still making sure my kidneys did not quit before Tuesday. I sighed and tossed my toothpick on the table. Then I made the mistake of looking across the room. Hongya was bent over polishing a giant floor vase. Her back was toward me. She was still wearing that criminal-made outfit the original Rhodes had designed, and when she leaned forward to scrub the lower half of that vase, the already comically short skirt rode up another 3 inches. What was revealed was so geometrically perfect that my engineering brain from my previous life briefly considered calculating the exact curvature ratio before my moral brain screamed at it to shut up. Those legs were impossibly long and toned. The overall architecture was genuinely flawless. I had to grudgingly admit that while the original road was a monster in every category that mattered, the man had absolutely elite taste in women. Credit where credit was tragically due. My mouth opened before my brain could intervene. Nice floor plan. The words left my face and entered the atmosphere. I could not retrieve them. They were gone. Deployed. Airborne. A modern slang compliment about body proportions, launched into a medieval fantasy world where nobody could possibly understand the reference. Hongya dropped the rag she was holding. She spun around with the alertness of a deer hearing a gunshot. What? Nothing. I coughed violently and waved her over. Come here. She did not move. Her face went gray. I watched the hope drain from her eyes in real time, replaced by a familiar flatness that I was beginning to recognize as her armor. Her fingers found the ties at her waist and started mechanically pulling at them, like a soldier disassembling a weapon from muscle memory. Fine. What game is it tonight? She asked in a dead voice. Bed or chair? Should I get the items from the chest? My soul left my body. This girl heard me say come here, and her automatic response was to start undressing, because that was her entire lived experience with those 2 words from this face. Every single time the original road said come here, something awful followed. She was not even upset about it anymore. She was just executing the protocol. I recoiled into my chair so hard the legs scraped against the floor. What are you doing? Put your hands down. Nobody is playing any games. She froze. Her fingers hovered over the tie. Her eyes were pure suspicion. Then why did you call me over? I took a deep breath. Fine. No more tiptoeing around this. Starting tomorrow, that outfit is gone. Do not ever wear it again. Her brain visibly stalled, then rebooted in the worst possible direction. What should I wear instead? She asked carefully. Then her face went white, and both hands flew to her chest. You want me to wear nothing? Nothing? Are you insane? I was on my feet, pointing at her nose, voice cracking from pure outrage. Can you please assume for 1 second that your master is a normal human being? I am saying wear whatever you want. Go to any tailor in the city. Pick something you like. And tell every other maid in this mansion the same thing. Tell them the prince got bored of the old look. Aesthetic fatigue. Brand refresh. Whatever you need to say. She stood there with her mouth open. Not moving. Not blinking. Like someone had pressed pause on her entire operating system. I was not done. Also, today in the dungeon, you proved you are smart, organized, and way too talented to be carrying leather chests around. Starting now, you are the head manager of this entire household. All finances, all accounts, all records go through you. You run this place. The pause lasted approximately 900 years. Do you have a fever? She whispered. Why does everyone keep asking me that today? She took half a step closer. Her voice was fragile and disbelieving, like someone being told they won a prize they never entered. I do not have to wear that uniform anymore. Correct. And I do not have to do that. I spread my hands innocently. Do I look like I have that intention? Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. Her chin dropped. Her shoulders started shaking. I braced myself for crying. This was it. Years of abuse suddenly lifted. The dam was going to break, and I was going to have to sit here awkwardly patting her head while she sobbed. She raised her face. She was smiling. Not a small smile. A massive, radiant, completely uncontrollable smile that lit up her entire face like someone had turned on a lamp behind her eyes. It was the first genuine smile I had seen from her, and it hit harder than anything Selena or Aaliyah had thrown at me in that dungeon. If you have been replaced by someone, she said, sniffing once, familiar sharpness creeping back into her voice, blink twice. I blinked twice. Deliberately. Slowly. She burst out laughing, slapped her hand over her mouth, then spun around and practically sprinted for the door. Where are you going? To find the account books, she yelled without looking back, voice vibrating with barely contained excitement. You have no idea how much debt you are in. We could sell this entire mansion and still not cover it. I watched her disappear around the corner like a woman reborn. Then I shook my head and smiled. First genuine good thing I had done in this world. Her footsteps stopped. She poked her head back around the doorframe. Your Highness, yeah? That thing you said earlier. Floor plan. What does that mean? I choked on my water so hard it came out my nose. I will explain that one another day. Next morning I was leaning against my carriage wheel, kicking pebbles like a bored kid waiting for the school bus, when I heard rapid footsteps coming around the corner. Hongye came sprinting down the street like her life depended on it. forehead glistening with sweat, clutching a paper bundle against her chest. She had gone out early to buy new clothes and was racing to make it back before I left. And the outfit. Oh, the outfit. Gone was the criminal-made costume that should have been classified as a weapon of mass embarrassment. In its place was an actual proper dress. Deep blue fabric falling all the way to her ankles, a crisp white apron with ruffled edges layered over the top, the whole thing tailored perfectly to her frame. She looked like a real person, a professional, someone you would trust with important tasks instead of someone you would call the authorities about. That said, the neckline was still cut noticeably low. When she ran, certain things were visibly in motion behind that fabric with considerable enthusiasm. I crossed my arms. Interesting fashion choice. I see you left me a little something to appreciate. Thoughtful. Her cheeks flushed instantly. She shot me a glare that could curdle milk. Do not flatter yourself. This is the most popular style in the capital this autumn. This is called personal taste. And besides, you gave me permission to wear whatever I want. I still have to make some compromises so I do not embarrass you by showing up in a potato sack. This girl. 12 hours ago she was offering to let me kill her, and now she was firing back jokes while modeling her new wardrobe with a sassy little spin. The transformation was honestly incredible. Give a person one day of being treated like a human being, and they bloom like a flower that someone finally remembered to water. Respect. I gave her a thumbs up and climbed into the carriage. That attitude just earned you a doubled salary this month. Get in. We have work. And that is exactly how your money disappears, she muttered, hopping in behind me and pulling the door shut. The door had not even clicked closed before she slammed a notebook onto the small folding table between our seats. This thing was thick as a brick, covered in leather, and absolutely stuffed with tiny handwriting that looked like an army of educated ants had marched across every page in perfect formation. What is this? I asked, eyeing it the way a man eyes a letter from the tax office. Hongya sat up ramrod straight, hands on her knees, spine like an iron rod. She had the energy of someone about to deliver a presentation they had been rehearsing all night. Which she had. This is the complete financial report of your household. I compiled it overnight. Her voice was dead serious. If you have made me head manager, then the first thing you need to understand is exactly how deep the hole is. I looked at the wall of microscopic handwriting and immediately felt my brain try to escape through my ear. You know what? The lighting in here is really bad. How about we save this for a nice sunny afternoon with some tea and maybe some pastries and a long nap beforehand? And no, she was not budging. Her eyes were literally sparkling with determination. This was her first real assignment. Her first chance to prove she was more than a decorative object. She had probably not slept a single minute last night, and she was vibrating with the need to show me what she could do. I sighed. If I crushed this enthusiasm now, I would never get another chance to be a lazy hands-off boss who delegates everything. Protecting my future laziness required short-term suffering. Classic investment strategy. Fine, but I cannot read all that. Just give me the summary. How much do I owe? Hongya opened to page 1 and cleared her throat with the gravity of a doctor about to deliver terminal news. Your Highness, over the past 6 months, your spending on drinking, gambling, and various other activities has completely drained the household reserves. Additionally, you borrowed substantial sums from the second prince, some of which were routed through unofficial treasury channels. Principal plus accumulated interest, your current total debt stands at 107,500 gold coins. I blinked. The number meant absolutely nothing to me. I had been in this world for 1 day. I had no concept of the local economy. For all I knew, that was the price of a nice hat. Can you put that in terms I can understand? I have zero frame of reference here. Hongya closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and proceeded to murder me with comparisons. The Spring Breeze House, the most famous and expensive pleasure establishment in the entire capital. If you wanted to purchase it outright, including every woman inside, the building, the furniture, and the land it sits on, the price would be approximately 30,000 gold coins. She paused for effect. She was enjoying this. Your current debt could buy the Spring Breeze House 3 times over with enough left to renovate the whole thing. My smile died on my face like a candle in a hurricane. Let me put it another way. She was relentless. A fully equipped Imperial heavy cavalry soldier costs approximately 50 gold coins per year, including salary, armor maintenance, horse feed, and equipment. Your debt could fund 1,750 heavy cavalry soldiers for an entire year. You do not owe money, Your Highness. You owe an army. I grabbed my chest and collapsed backward into the velvet cushion like I had been shot. How did this happen? I was sputtering. And Vincent just handed over that much money? Just like that, the second prince controls the treasury. That amount is pocket change to him. Hongye raised one eyebrow with the practiced air of an accountant who has seen it all. However, I have already prepared a preliminary debt reduction strategy. Tell me, I wheezed, still horizontal. First, sell all the unused carriages and those solid gold statues you have sitting around collecting dust. That recovers a few thousand. Second, fire half the unnecessary staff. Third, find actual income. If you handle this elf rebellion case well enough to earn an imperial reward, that might cover a fraction of the interest. I lay there staring at the velvet ceiling of my obscene carriage, doing the math on my situation. I had inherited a poisoned body, 2 murderous brothers, a catastrophic debt that could literally finance a small war, a reputation so toxic that women dove into garbage cans to avoid me, and a household full of traumatized servants in stripper outfits. Every other transmigration story I had ever read, the main character wakes up as a prince and immediately starts living the dream. Palace feasts and beautiful women and political genius moves from day one. Me? I woke up as a prince and immediately discovered I was bankrupt, physically destroyed, politically irrelevant, and one bad decision away from being murdered by my own family. But then I thought about what was waiting for me at the end of this carriage ride. 3 elf beauties in a dungeon. A scheming queen, an adorable princess, and an angry warrior goddess. Whatever happened with my finances, at least the scenery at work was spectacular. I would figure out the money situation. I had to. In this empire, being broke was just as deadly as being hated. The carriage rattled to a stop in front of the black iron gates of the imperial heavy prison. Day 2 of being the worst interrogator in imperial history was about to begin. Time to go see my favorite prisoners. Day 2. Carriage pulled up to the prison. Before I even stepped out, I could hear yelling, clanking armor, and general chaos coming from the front entrance. Something exciting was clearly happening without me. I jumped down from my rolling art crime of a carriage and immediately saw the most beautiful sight of my entire new life. Gray, the big scary torturer. The man who fed me pig slop and smirked about it yesterday. That mountain of muscle and cruelty was currently being held by both arms by officers in dark blue uniforms, and his face was whiter than fresh snow. All that tough guy energy had completely evaporated. He looked like a balloon someone had let the air out of. The surrounding prison guards were standing around with their necks pulled in like turtles, absolutely terrified, because none of them had ever seen their boss looking this pathetic before. Then Gray spotted me stepping off my infamous carriage, and his whole body deflated even further. I could literally watch the realization crawl across his face like a slow-moving thunderstorm. Yesterday, this stupid prince threatened to make him eat with dogs. Today, auditors showed up at dawn. What were the odds of that being a coincidence? 0. The odds were exactly 0. I could not resist. I physically could not stop myself. I strolled over with my hands behind my back, chin up, walking with the most arrogant strut my weak legs could manage. Well, if it is not our upstanding Warden Gray. Looking sharp today? Love the new accessories. I pointed at the restraints on his wrists with maximum cheerfulness. Yesterday you were so tough and confident. What happened? New fashion trend. Gray was grinding his teeth so hard I could hear enamel cracking. He could not even form words. Just stood there vibrating with impotent rage while imperial auditors held his arms. Do not give me that look, I grinned, patting his shoulder like we were old drinking buddies. I am the most generous person alive. You were so helpful yesterday. Obviously I had to return the favor. Chef's kiss. Revenge served ice cold, delivered with a smile. This was better than any performance review I had ever given in my previous corporate life. Then a voice cut through my gloating like a blade through butter. Prince Road. I turned around and my brain immediately started malfunctioning. The woman walking toward me was maybe 30 years old, wearing an Imperial Investigation Bureau uniform that fit her body like it had been sculpted on by angels with engineering degrees. Dark blue fabric, crisp lines, official badge on the chest. She carried herself like someone who had never once in her entire life wondered whether she belonged in a room. My inherited memories kicked in automatically. Baroness Lavender, senior officer of the Imperial Independent Investigation Bureau, famous for being utterly incorruptible and devastatingly cold. Her family was old money, powerful, well-connected. She was the last surviving heir of her noble line. She was also, according to every nobleman who had ever laid eyes on her, absolutely gorgeous in a way that made you feel like you should apologize for existing near her. "Good morning, Your Highness." She stopped exactly 3 steps away, executed a flawless military salute, and spoke in a tone that communicated professional respect and absolutely zero personal interest simultaneously. "I am Baroness Lavender, assigned to oversee the prison audit." Apologies for the commotion. I opened my mouth to respond politely. My body had other plans. This cursed flesh prison detected an attractive woman in a fitted uniform and immediately went to maximum alert. The combination of her curves and that buttoned-up authoritarian aesthetic triggered something primal in the original Rhodes biological programming. All higher brain functions were overridden. Blood rushed south at emergency speed. Full tent. Again, in broad daylight, in front of an imperial law enforcement officer, on the steps of a maximum security prison, with at least 30 people watching. I doubled over like someone had punched me in the stomach, clamping both hands over my midsection and squeezing my legs together so tight my knees were touching. I looked like a man experiencing a sudden and violent intestinal emergency, which was honestly preferable to the truth. Baroness Lavender did not even blink. She continued her briefing as if the prince in front of her was not currently folded in half like a broken lawn chair. Complete professional. Absolute ice queen. I respected her enormously while simultaneously wanting to throw myself into the nearest river. Once my body finally calmed down, I straightened up and tried to recover some dignity. I smiled my friendliest smile and stepped toward her with my hand extended, going for a casual shoulder pat. "You know, colleague to colleague. Professional networking." She glided backward one smooth step without changing her expression at all, like a cat avoiding water. The distance between us snapped back to exactly 3 paces. "Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. Duty calls." I must decline. Behind me, Hongya made a sound like a tea kettle about to explode. She slapped her hand over her mouth, but her shoulders were shaking violently with suppressed laughter. Then it hit me. Of course she dodged. I was the most notorious predator in the entire capital. If anyone saw this pristine, untouchable noblewoman letting the infamous third prince touch her shoulder in public, the tabloid headlines would write themselves. I could already picture them. Ice Queen Baroness falls to degenerate prince, or Investigation Bureau compromised by royal pervert. One shoulder pat and her reputation would need a decade of bleach. She was treating me like radioactive waste, and she was completely justified. Suddenly Gray made his move. The big man let out a roar like a wounded animal, shook off both guards with one massive shrug, and started running. His thick legs pumped hard as he bolted for the street corner, clearly figuring that wherever the Investigation Bureau was taking him, he was never coming back out. Baroness Lavender's eyes narrowed. She made a small disapproving sound. Then she launched herself into the air. Her uniform skirt flared out as she vaulted off the stone steps. Those long legs, wrapped in black leather boots, caught the sunlight as she sailed overhead like some kind of deadly bird of prey. Before Gray had covered 3 steps, she landed directly on his shoulders, locked both thighs around his thick neck, twisted her entire body with explosive force, and flipped that 300-pound slab of meat face-first into the cobblestones. The impact shook the ground. Dust billowed everywhere. Gray was unconscious before he finished bouncing. I stood there with my mouth hanging open, eyes locked onto those thighs that had just choked out a man twice her size. The power, the precision, the absolutely terrifying elegance. I want those legs around my neck too. Even if it kills me. Especially if it kills me. My brain flooded with images I am not allowed to describe. The fire downstairs roared back to life with a vengeance. Baroness Lavender dismounted the unconscious Gray like she was stepping off a horse, flicked her hair back into place, and waved at her subordinates without breaking stride. "Take him. Wake him up. Continue the interrogation." She marched to her carriage without giving me a single additional glance. Not one. I was furniture to her. Less than furniture. Furniture at least gets dusted occasionally. I swallowed hard, shook my head violently until the inappropriate thoughts scattered, and yanked my collar straight. Forget it. Work time. No more distractions. I pointed at the prison doors with what I hoped was commanding authority. Hongya, move it. We have elves to interrogate. Walking down that spiral staircase today felt like entering a completely different dimension from yesterday. The prison guards who had been treating me like a joke 24 hours ago were now falling over themselves to kiss my boots. Gray's dramatic arrest on the front steps had sent a very clear message through the entire facility. The idiot prince bites back. A chubby head guard was practically crawling in front of me, sweating and grinning so hard his face might split. He was pointing out slippery steps and warning me about uneven stones like I was made of porcelain. Another skinny one was running alongside holding a torch, lighting every shadow as if darkness itself might offend me. Yesterday, these guys would not have offered me a glass of water. Today, they would probably drink poison if I suggested it looked tasty. The heavy iron door screeched open, and there were my 3 elves. Selena and Aaliyah scrambled to their feet immediately, bowing deeply through the bars before I even fully entered the room. They did not even brush the straw off their clothes first. Proper greeting. Respectful posture. Someone had been coaching overnight. Then Selena turned her head toward Vera, still hanging on the wall, and fired off a look so terrifying it could have stopped a charging cavalry unit. The message was crystal clear. Say something polite, or I will personally end you before the prince gets the chance. Vera's face went through about 15 colors. Her jaw clenched. Her neck stiffened. Every muscle in her body was screaming resistance. But Selena's death stare won the war. Good morning, Your Highness, Vera squeezed out in a voice so quiet and reluctant it sounded like someone was physically extracting each word from her throat with pliers. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I just smirked and told the guard to let her down. She had been hanging all night. That was enough. The chains popped open and Vera collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Selena caught her just before she hit the ground. And the sound Vera made when her arms finally dropped and her muscles released was this breathy, exhausted, helpless little gasp that echoed through the whole dungeon. My ears perked up involuntarily. The fierce warrior woman who wanted to chew my face off yesterday, making a sound like that? My brain filed it away in a folder I was not proud of. Vera realized what she had sounded like and buried her face in Selena's shoulder so fast she nearly headbutted her. Her dark skin was flushed deep red from pure embarrassment. I pointed at their ragged clothes. Everyone was shivering, and their lips were practically blue. I ordered the guards to bring clean, warm clothing immediately. The head guard nearly dislocated his neck, nodding, and started screaming at his subordinates to move faster. They scattered like cockroaches when the lights turned on. Then Selena made her play. She gently handed Vera off to Aaliyah, straightened up, walked to the iron bars, and deployed every weapon in her considerable arsenal simultaneously. She pressed her body against the cold metal, letting her already destroyed robe fall open strategically. The amount of skin on display was staggering. Curves that defied physics were practically overflowing through the gaps between the iron bars. She looked me dead in the eyes with that ancient, knowing gaze and spoke in a voice like warm honey poured over velvet. This rebellion was entirely my decision. Aaliyah is just a naive child. Vera just followed orders. If you want to interrogate someone today, interrogate me. Whatever you want to hear, I will say it. Whatever you want to see, I will show you. She tilted her head and pulled her neckline down another half-inch. Just casually, like adjusting a scarf. Except what was being revealed was not a scarf. It was a landscape, a topographical masterpiece that made my eyeballs physically vibrate. Behind her, Aaliyah had both hands clamped over her mouth, eyes enormous, whispering to herself in genuine awe. I caught the words. So this is the adult world. Even the innocent princess was taking notes. My feet were cemented to the floor. My eyes were completely ignoring every command my brain was sending. The original Rhodes body was responding to Selena like a compass responding to magnetic north. My modern brain was screaming retreat, while my inherited biology was screaming charge. Two tiny versions of myself were fist-fighting inside my skull. One was waving a flag that said go for it. The other was holding up a medical chart showing my kidney function at approximately 12%. I squeezed my eyes shut, rubbed my face with both hands so hard it hurt, then opened them and forcibly aimed my gaze at the ceiling. Pull your clothes together. You will catch a cold. I turned my entire body away from her because I simply did not trust my eyes anymore. Not today. I am indisposed. Selena's seduction face froze mid-operation like a computer hitting an error screen. She clearly could not process what she was hearing. The most infamous pervert in the empire was turning down a free show from a woman who every nobleman in the capital fantasized about. You are joking. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. What kind of inconvenience could a man possibly have? Am I not attractive enough? Or is there something else going on? Full stop. I kept my back to her and waved my hand. I am extremely interested in your body. Enormously interested. Record-breaking interest. But things must be done in order. Today we talk business, so there we were. The most absurd standoff in the history of prisoner interrogations. She was stripping to save her people. I was refusing to look to save my kidneys. Two completely different survival strategies colliding head-on in a freezing dungeon and somehow producing the exact same result. Nothing happened. The guards returned with clothes and blankets at record speed. Selena changed into something warmer, wrapped herself in a thick blanket, and sat down across from me in a chair the guards had provided. Tea was served. Everyone else was banished from earshot. She picked up her rough clay cup, blew gently on the surface, and took a sip. The seductress was gone. In her place sat the queen. The real one. The politician. The 300-year-old strategist who had been running a kingdom since before my ancestors learned to read. All right then, Your Highness. Her voice was level and sharp now, completely stripped of artificial sweetness. All business. No romance. What exactly do you need from me to write your report? Finally. No games. No cleavage warfare. Just two people sitting across from each other with tea and a conversation that might actually matter. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my legs, and smiled. This was the interrogation I had been waiting for. So there I was, sitting across from a 300-year-old fox wrapped in a prison blanket, trying to have a serious conversation while her mature woman aura was punching through that thick wool like it was made of tissue paper. Even fully covered, this woman radiated danger and attraction in equal measure. Every century she had lived was a weapon loaded and aimed directly at whatever poor fool sat across from her. Time to get real. Let me clarify something, I said, leaning forward on my elbows. I absolutely want to discuss romantic topics with you. Your figure and presence are extremely appealing. Any functioning man would lose focus. Selena did not flinch. She just smiled deeper, eyes doing that slow sweeping thing that made you feel like she was reading your medical records and your diary simultaneously. Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness. Do not thank me yet. I rapped my knuckles on the table hard enough to shatter whatever bedroom atmosphere was trying to form. Before any of that happens, we need to have an honest conversation. You understand your situation, right? Rebellion is a capital crime. What do you think happens at the end of this road? Her eyelids lowered. Even discussing her own execution, those eyes stayed impossibly composed. Like pools of dark water that nothing could disturb. We lose our heads, naturally. Her voice was calm enough to narrate a nature documentary. I may not understand every detail of imperial law, but rebellion has the same ending everywhere. A public square, a sharp blade. And if we are lucky, they leave the body intact. You are remarkably clear-headed about this, I said, leaning back and crossing my arms. So if you know you are walking toward a chopping block, why were you trying so hard to seduce me 5 minutes ago? What is the angle? She looked at me. Then very slowly, very deliberately, she reached across the table and placed her fingertips on the back of my hand. Light as a feather. Testing. Probing. Because until the very last moment, I have to try, she whispered. You are willing to sit here and talk to me. That means we still have value. And where there is value, there might be room to negotiate. I slapped the back of her hand. Not hard, but loud enough to make a point. Cut the act. What if I take everything you are offering, use your body until I am satisfied, then pull up my pants and walk away like nothing happened? My reputation in this city is legendary garbage. Sleeping with prisoners and pretending it never occurred is completely within my established character profile. Behind me, Hongya opened her mouth, reconsidered, and closed it again. Smart girl. Selena withdrew her hand and gently rubbed the spot where I had slapped it. The flirtatious mask cracked slightly, revealing something raw underneath. Something that looked uncomfortably close to genuine pain. Even if the chances are nearly zero, I still must try. She looked me dead in the eyes, and for the first time her voice carried real weight instead of calculated softness. I know I cannot save myself. My life ended the moment the rebellion failed. But if this broken body of mine can bring you even a moment of pleasure, and if that moment earns even the smallest chance of survival for my people, for the children starving in Silver Moon Forest, then I will offer it without hesitation. That is my duty as queen." From behind the iron bars came the sound of muffled sobbing. Aaliyah was biting the back of her hand so hard her teeth left marks, tears streaming down her face, shoulders shaking violently. She wanted to scream, to say something, but she knew any interruption might destroy whatever fragile negotiation was happening outside. So she swallowed her cries and nearly choked on them. Beside her, Vera had gone completely silent. No more roaring. No more death threats. The fierce warrior was staring at the floor with bloodshot eyes, fists clenched so tight her knuckles had gone pale. She was punching the moss-covered stone beneath her, over and over, silently, each impact leaving bloody smears on the green surface. I felt something shift inside my chest. Just for a second, this woman was willing to sacrifice everything. Her dignity, her body, her pride as a ruler, all of it thrown on the table like poker chips in a game she knew she was losing. Not for herself. For starving children she might never see again. For a forest that might already be ashes. That kind of resolve was genuinely impressive. It was also exactly the kind of quality that made her the most dangerous person in this dungeon. A leader who can discard herself without blinking is a leader who has already calculated every possible outcome and decided that nothing is off limits. Behind that sad, beautiful face was a brain running scenarios faster than anything I could match. Feeling sorry for her was natural. Trusting her, because of those feelings, would be suicide. I sat up straight and dropped the playful tone entirely. "Admirable speech, Your Majesty. Truly. But let us cut through the performance and talk plainly." My fingers drummed the table with increasing speed. "You just admitted that my older brother is the one who crushed you militarily. My second brother is the one who strangled you financially. Those are my brothers. My family. Why in the world would you think I would side with a defeated foreign prisoner over my own blood? What leverage could you possibly have?" She did not panic. She did not stammer. She laughed. A quiet, knowing laugh that had nothing to do with humor and everything to do with the fact that she had been waiting for exactly this question. "Because you are sitting here," her gaze locked onto mine like a targeting system. "If you truly stood with your brothers, you never would have fought to take us from the tribunal. Your eldest brother commands the military. Your second brother controls the treasury. And you, with all respect, have neither soldiers nor money nor political influence." She leaned forward, hands folded on the table, voice dropping to a frequency that vibrated somewhere between my ribs. "I do not understand how power games work in your capital, but I understand one thing with perfect clarity. I am the center of this rebellion. I am the only card currently sitting in your hand. How you choose to play that card against your brothers is your business. But you and I both know that I am far too valuable to simply throw away." For the first time since meeting this woman, I did not look at her chest. I stared at her face for a full 10 seconds. Just her face. Those ancient, calculating, magnificent eyes. Beautiful analysis. 3 sentences, and she had peeled my entire political situation down to the bone. No army. No money. No allies. Just a title and 3 prisoners that everyone else considered disposable. She was right. And she knew she was right. And she knew that I knew. Talking to smart people saves so much time. Without breaking eye contact, I reached into my coat and pulled out the silk pouch Vincent had given me yesterday. I loosened the drawstring, tipped out a single dark brown pill, and let it roll across the wooden table until it stopped between us. "Eat it." I rolled that dark little pill across the table and watched it stop right in front of Selena. Her reaction was immediate and completely predictable. She assumed it was either a compliance drug or an aphrodisiac, and she leaned into the role like a professional actress who had been waiting for exactly this cue. "So you are finally ready to accept my services?" she purred, her clothes conveniently sliding off one shoulder as she picked up the pill between 2 elegant fingers. "You really do not need these little tricks, Your Highness. I am already perfectly obedient." Then she did something that nearly ended my life right there at that table. Instead of just putting the pill in her mouth like a normal person, she pressed it against the top of her chest and slowly, agonizingly slowly, dragged it upward along her skin. That tiny round pill traced a path across curves that should be classified as geographical landmarks, glided over her collarbone, crawled up the side of her snow-white neck, and finally arrived at her lips. The whole journey took maybe 5 seconds, but my brain experienced it as approximately 300 years. My throat made an involuntary swallowing sound, so loud it echoed off the dungeon walls. Every blood cell in my body abandoned its post and rushed south, like refugees fleeing a natural disaster. This woman had turned the simple act of taking medicine into something that belonged in a museum of forbidden arts. Then she brought the pill close to her nose, probably planning to do one more teasing little gesture before swallowing it. But the moment she caught the scent, something changed. The flirtatious mask flickered. Her eyebrows drew together in a tiny, almost invisible frown. She pulled the pill away from her lips, held it at a distance, and studied it carefully. Then she sniffed it again. "Where did you get this?" Her voice had shifted. Still smooth, still controlled, but the playful edge was gone. "Do you take these regularly?" I waved her off impatiently. "None of your business. Just eat it." Since when do elves get picky about free snacks? She did not eat it. She rolled it between her fingers, examining the rough surface, and her gaze traveled slowly to my face, specifically to the dark circles under my eyes that could double as storage compartments. I watched her brain working behind those ancient eyes, connecting dots I had not given her permission to connect. "As long as you are not taking these yourself." Her tone shifted to something almost gentle, which was terrifying coming from a woman who had been trying to seduce me 30 seconds ago. "This pill does work as a stimulant. It will make someone feel extremely energetic and powerful. However, if taken repeatedly over time, I am afraid the consequences would be severe." My spine went rigid. "Severe how?" "This contains extracts of silver leaf grass and bone bloodvine." She set the pill back on the table like it was a tiny grenade. "In our elven medical texts, these ingredients form a powerful overdraft stimulant. In plain language, it is a slow-acting poison. It burns through your life force to generate temporary vitality. The longer you take it, the faster you die." I sat perfectly still in my chair while my internal world caught fire and exploded. "Vincent, you absolute magnificent bastard." Every suspicion I had was now confirmed with a neat little bow on top. My dear second brother, the thoughtful sibling who always had medicine ready, the caring family member who never forgot a monthly delivery. He had been feeding the original road poison disguised as performance enhancers for over half a year. Every pill made the old road feel invincible for a night and shaved weeks off his lifespan in return. The devastating physical condition of this body was not just the result of partying too hard. It was deliberate, calculated chemical assassination executed with a warm smile and a brotherly pat on the shoulder. No wonder this body felt like it belonged to an 80-year-old man. No wonder the back pain, the kidney failure, the dark circles that could be seen from orbit. The original road thought his brother was his best friend. He popped those pills like candy, went out and destroyed himself even further, and never once suspected that each dose was another shovelful of dirt on his own grave. Vincent did not need assassins. He did not need poison in wine or a knife in the dark. He just needed to understand his brother's weakness and feed it right back to him in pharmaceutical form. Death by enablement. Murder disguised as kindness. The perfect crime committed monthly with a smile and a silk pouch. If I ever doubted that this empire was rotten to its core, those doubts were now officially and permanently dead. I kept my face frozen in what I hoped looked like thoughtful annoyance rather than volcanic rage. Just a tight, cold little smile that hopefully communicated nothing useful. Selena watched my reaction carefully. She was no fool. She had probably already deduced exactly who had given me those pills and exactly what that meant about my family dynamics. 300 years of reading people meant nothing got past her. Then she picked the pill back up. "If you want me to take it, I will." She smiled with the calm acceptance of someone who had already made peace with death. "It is a slow poison. One pill will not kill me immediately. And honestly, I will probably lose my head in a public square long before the toxin finishes its work. So what difference does it make?" She brought it to her lips. Mouth open, teeth ready. I moved before my brain finished processing the command. My entire upper body launched across that table like a human missile. I grabbed her wrist and wrenched her hand away from her mouth, pried the pill out of her fingers, and shoved it back into my coat pocket in one frantic motion. "Are you crazy? You know it is poison and you still try to eat it? Did something break inside your head? In the chaos of my heroic pill rescue, I had yanked her arm hard enough to pull her forward across the table. She let out a startled yelp that was so soft, so breathy, so involuntarily feminine that it made Vera's exhausted gasp from earlier sound like a truck horn by comparison. My legs turned to noodles. I nearly collapsed face first onto the table surface. And I was still holding her arm. It was soft. Impossibly soft. This was a woman who had led armies into battle against imperial heavy cavalry. She should have felt like a soldier. Instead, her arm felt like it had been constructed from clouds and warm silk. Every fiber of her being was engineered to make men lose their minds. She leaned against the table edge, letting me hold her, and tilted her head with a smile so warm and knowing that it practically had its own gravitational field. "Your Highness, what exactly is this about?" she asked in a voice dripping with honeyed curiosity. I was holding a beautiful woman's arm across a table in a dungeon, breathing like I had just sprinted a mile, with a poisonous pill in my pocket and zero explanation prepared for why I had just saved an enemy queen from eating something I had told her to eat. Smooth road. Really smooth. My brain was screaming red alert. That impulsive pill-grabbing stunt had been a massive tactical error. Selena was watching me with those ancient, all-seeing eyes, and I could practically hear her mental calculator clicking away. This fool prince just protected me from poison. He has a soft spot. He can be manipulated. File under exploitable weaknesses, priority 1. If I let her believe I was some secret nice guy hiding behind a bad reputation, she would wrap me around her finger within a week. This woman had been playing political chess since before my country invented the printing press. Showing genuine kindness to her was like handing a master lockpick the keys and saying please do not open anything. Only one option. Lean into the scumbag persona so hard she could not tell the difference between acting and reality. I did not release her arm. Instead, I lunged forward, wrapped my other hand around her waist, and squeezed. Hard enough to make a point, but not hard enough to actually hurt. Then I pressed my mouth close to her ear and dropped my voice to that low rumble that every villain in every story uses right before doing something terrible. "Do not forget why I am here, Your Majesty. I can spare you from the poison, but the interrogation still happens. Are you ready for what comes next?" Selena's entire body went stiff as a board. 300 years old, never held a man's hand, and suddenly some random prince was grabbing her waist like he owned the place. Her composure cracked for exactly 1 second. I felt her muscles lock up under my fingers. Then the professional mask slammed back down, and she bit her lower lip in a way that was probably meant to look seductive, but actually looked like someone trying very hard not to panic. "If the prince wishes to interrogate me," she breathed, forcing her voice into something approximating sultriness, "then it would be Selena's honor." She even tried to do a little hip movement to match my energy. It was objectively terrible. For a woman who had been deploying weapons-grade seduction techniques all morning, this particular attempt had the grace of someone who had learned flirting from a textbook and skipped the practical exam. But I was in absolutely no position to judge because the mere sensation of her waist under my hand was causing a full system malfunction in my central nervous system. Behind me, Honya's face caught fire. She spun around so fast she nearly gave herself whiplash, grabbed her thick leather ledger, and shoved it against her face like a shield. "You two are absolutely shameless," she squeaked from behind the paperwork, her neck glowing red all the way down to her collar. Meanwhile, behind the iron bars, the audience was having very different reactions. Aaliyah had both hands clamped over her mouth, enormous green eyes darting between me and Selena like she was watching the most confusing sporting event of her life. "Vera, is this what adults do?" she whispered in genuine bewilderment. Vera's dark face was so red it had turned almost purple. She wanted to scream profanity at me, but watching her own queen perform these maneuvers with such practiced confidence had short-circuited her outrage receptors. She managed only one strangled command through clenched teeth. "Stop looking. You will damage your eyes." Now here is the part one only found out about later, but it is far too good to leave out. While all this was happening inside the cell, the prison guards had gathered at the far end of the corridor for an impromptu gossip session. Their boss had been dragged away in handcuffs that morning, and they were all running on nervous energy and zero supervision. The head guard was leaning against the wall philosophizing about how terrifying I apparently was. Yesterday, Gray disrespected me. Today, Gray got arrested. The math was simple. The conclusion was unanimous. The third prince was not a harmless pervert. He was a vengeful demon who destroyed anyone who crossed him. Then one skinny little guard with beady rat eyes piped up with the question everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to ask. They had been standing out here for quite a while, and there was suspicious silence coming from the cell. What exactly was happening in there? The group consensus formed instantly. 3 beautiful elf women plus the most notorious playboy in the empire plus a locked door equaled exactly one possible scenario. The guards started exchanging the kind of knowing grins that transcend cultural barriers and historical periods. Men have been making that exact face since the invention of walls. The skinny guard volunteered to sneak closer under the pretense of delivering hot water. His colleagues cheered him on like he was heading into battle. Go forth, brave soldier. Gather intelligence. Report back with details. He crept along the wall like a cartoon burglar, pressed his ear against the heavy iron door, and listened. At first, nothing. Then, floating through the gap between door and frame, came exactly what he was hoping to hear. Soft, breathy, unmistakable. Ma. Gently. Your Highness, that hurts. His eyes went wide. His grin went wider. Yes, right there. Harder. Ah. The skinny guard was vibrating with excitement. This was premium gossip. Career-defining, eavesdropping material. He would be telling this story at every tavern in the district for the next 10 years. He was about to sneak back to share his findings when the iron door swung open without warning. Since he had been literally leaning against it, he pitched forward like a falling tree, face first into the stone floor. Hot water from his kettle splashed everywhere, scalding his hands and knees. He yelped and flailed on the ground like a fish dropped on a dock. A pair of small black leather shoes appeared directly in front of his nose. He looked up. Hongya stared down at him with an expression that could freeze lava. From inside the room, Selena's voice continued drifting out with perfect clarity and extremely suggestive timing. Your Highness, not there. Ah. The guard scrambled to his feet, clutching his empty kettle like a lifeline. I was bringing hot water. Just hot water. In case His Highness was thirsty, his eyes kept darting past Hongya into the room, desperately trying to catch a glimpse of whatever legendary scene was unfolding inside. Hongya rolled her leather ledger into a tight tube and tapped it against her palm like a weapon. Would you like me to bring you a chair? You could sit right here at the door and watch the whole show. Front row seats. Would that be convenient enough for you? The guard turned a color that does not exist in nature and fled so fast he left one shoe behind. Now, what was actually happening inside that room? Not what anyone outside imagined. Let me rewind 10 minutes and explain what was actually happening inside that cell while the guards outside were letting their imaginations run wild. After I shoved that poison pill back into my coat, I dragged my chair around the table, sat down across from Selena, and got serious for maybe the first time since arriving in this world. Queen, short version. I kept my voice low, tapping the table for emphasis. I just made a big show of pulling you out for a private session. Every single guard out there is pressing his ear against something right now. I have no idea which of them report to my brothers. So you and I need to put on a performance. Make noise. The kind of noise that makes people outside think I am doing exactly what everyone expects me to do. Selena tilted her head like a cat that just heard something interesting. A performance? What kind of noise does the prince have in mind? Easy. That sound you made when I grabbed your arm earlier. Do more of that. Louder. More dramatic. Make it sound like I am conducting an extremely thorough and deeply unprofessional interrogation. The cell went silent for 2 full seconds. Aaliyah buried her face in her hands. Vera looked like someone had slapped her with a fish. Selena studied me, with that ancient fox smile getting wider and wider. Then she pulled the blanket tighter around herself and batted her eyelashes with theatrical innocence. Oh dear, this is terribly difficult. I have spent 300 years meditating in a peaceful forest. I simply would not know how to make such improper sounds. Perhaps the prince could demonstrate first. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly saw my own brain. This woman had been performing seduction techniques that could destabilize governments 5 minutes ago, and now she was playing the sheltered maiden card. The audacity was almost impressive. You do not know how? Fine. Hard way it is. I stood up, walked around to her side of the table, and channeled every ounce of the original Rhodes shamelessness. I needed his thick skin, his complete absence of dignity, his ability to do outrageous things without a single functioning shame receptor firing. I raised my hand and brought it down directly on the most prominent curve of her lower silhouette. The sound echoed through the entire dungeon like a gunshot. YH. That scream was 100% genuine. Not acting. Not performance. Pure authentic shock from a 300-year-old queen who had endured capture, imprisonment, and the threat of execution without breaking composure, but had never in her extremely long life experienced the specific indignity of being spanked like a misbehaving child by a human prince half her age. Vera erupted from behind the bars, screaming murder threats. I ignored her completely. Perfect. That sounded great. Keep going. I was riding an adrenaline wave of pure reckless stupidity. I followed up with a pinch on the same general area. Selena whipped her head around and gave me a glare that combined 3 centuries of royal authority with the very specific fury of a woman whose dignity had just been physically assaulted. You absolute. Louder. They cannot hear you outside. Another smack. Another yelp. Another death stare that could have melted castle walls. I had completely lost control of the situation, and I did not care. The original Rhodes body was treating this like Christmas morning. My modern brain had given up trying to stop anything, and some third entity that was neither of us was just cackling hysterically at the sheer absurdity of a reincarnated office worker spanking an elf queen for espionage purposes. Selena was furious, but she was also confused, because my strikes had basically zero force behind them. Through the thick blanket and clothing, my slaps were about as painful as being hit by a pillow thrown by a sleepy toddler. This was not torture. This was not even discipline. This was the physical equivalent of a mildly inappropriate joke told at a work dinner. And something strange happened. In the middle of this ridiculous exchange of slaps and yelps and outraged glares, the tension that had been crushing Selena since her capture started to crack. The fear, the grief, the weight of a failed rebellion and a doomed nation, all of it briefly lost its grip. She was too busy being scandalized to be terrified. The absurdity was doing what her own willpower could not. Then she snapped. She grabbed my offending hand, spun around, chest heaving, face burning crimson, and hit me with words that nearly stopped my heart. You have already gone this far. Why are you wasting time with this nonsense? If you want to do it, then just do it. I am not stopping you. In the corner, Aaliyah started gently banging her head against the stone wall. Vera was trying to physically stuff her own ears shut with her fingers. I stumbled backward. My brain was screaming yes. My kidneys were screaming absolutely not. My back pain was filing a formal complaint. This body could not survive a vigorous sneeze, let alone what she was proposing. Nice try. I yanked my hand free and pointed at her nose with the conviction of a man defending his last remaining brain cell. You think I would fall for that? I have read books about this. Fantasy literature. Clearly documented. Some non-human women can poison men during the act. Secret toxins. Mind control substances. You lure me in, dose me through intimate contact, and I spend the rest of my life as your zombie puppet. Not happening. Dead silence. Honya's charcoal pencil hit the floor. Selena stared at me for approximately 15 seconds. Completely motionless. Processing. Then this 300-year-old monarch, survivor of wars and political crises that predated my entire civilization, completely lost it. She started laughing so hard she could barely stand. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. Her legendary composure disintegrated into helpless giggles. What is wrong with your brain? She was not even using my title anymore. Nobody carries that kind of poison around. Who would prepare something like that? What kind of books are you reading? From behind me, Honya delivered the kill shot with surgical precision and zero emotion. So that poison does exist. You just did not bring any. Interesting. Selena choked on her own laughter and shot Honya a venomous look that could have withered a forest. But she had no comeback. Technically, Honya was right. She had denied carrying it, not denied its existence. Before I could continue my lecture on male self-preservation in fantasy worlds, we heard a crash outside the iron door followed by a pathetic yelp. Honya pulled the door open and some skinny guard practically fell into the room, scrambled to his feet, and fled down the corridor, leaving one shoe behind. I collapsed into my chair and wiped cold sweat off my forehead. Just as I suspected. Ears everywhere. Every guard in this prison was monitoring the sounds coming from this cell. My reputation demanded that certain noises be produced during these private sessions. If complete silence came from behind that door day after day, someone would start asking questions. which meant that every future visit would require another performance. Another round of carefully staged sound effects designed to convince eavesdroppers that the notorious third prince was doing exactly what the notorious third prince would do. I sighed deeply and stared at the ceiling. Being a fake villain is exhausting. While I was busy spanking a queen for national security purposes, something much less funny was happening in the shadows outside. That skinny little guard who got caught eavesdropping at the door was not just a nosy pervert. He was a paid informant. Later that same afternoon, the little weasel was hunched over in some filthy back alley in the south side of the capital, whispering his report to someone sitting inside a completely unmarked black carriage. No coat of arms. No identifying marks. Just dark windows and a crack wide enough to pass money through. He told them everything. Or rather, he told them what he thought was everything. Slapping sounds. Moaning. The queen screaming. Bed frame shaking. The full imaginary scenario his perverted little brain had constructed from a few muffled noises heard through an iron door. A voice from inside the carriage dismissed him with one contemptuous sentence. A waste is still a waste. A fat coin purse flew out the window, landed in the mud, and the guard snatched it up like a rat grabbing cheese before scurrying away into the twilight. The black carriage rolled off without a sound. Someone was watching me. Someone was paying for information about what I did with those prisoners. I did not know who yet, but I could make an educated guess that started with the letter V or the letter L, possibly both. My brothers had eyes everywhere, and I had just given their spy exactly what they wanted to hear. The useless third prince was doing exactly what everyone expected, playing with his toys, being disgusting, being irrelevant. Good. Let them think that. Let every intelligence report confirm their assumptions. The dumber they believe I am, the more room I have to operate. Back at the mansion that evening, I was melted into a padded chair in the study, legs thrown over a tea table, gulping hot tea like a man who had been screaming in a desert all day, which was not far from the truth. Between fake interrogation sound effects and real arguments with a 300-year-old queen about whether she could poison me through intimate contact, my throat was absolutely destroyed. Hongya stood at attention nearby, holding her leather ledger like a soldier awaiting orders. All right, head manager. Show me today's interrogation notes. Everything I said during that groundbreaking session with the queen. She held up a completely blank sheet of parchment. Your Highness, what exactly was I supposed to write down? Should I have recorded the number of times you slapped the queen's rear? Or perhaps transcribed her screams with timestamps? What possible use would that documentation serve? I opened my mouth to protest, then realized she had actually made a brilliant decision. Everything Selena and I discussed about my brothers was political dynamite. If even one page of written notes fell into the wrong hands, we were both dead. Hongya had recognized this instinctively and kept the record clean without being told. This girl had the political instincts of someone 3 times her age. The original road had owned a diamond and used it as a doorstop. Smart move. Triple your salary. She sighed so deeply her entire body deflated. Your Highness, with what money? The treasury mice are filing bankruptcy paperwork. Unless you plan to pay me in novelty devices from your personal collection. I coughed and changed the subject at maximum speed. Serious question. What if I brought those 3 elves here? To live at the mansion instead of rotting in that prison. The dungeon was crawling with informants and spies. Every wall had ears. Every guard was potentially reporting to someone. If I wanted to actually work with Selena on anything meaningful, I needed her somewhere I could control the environment. My own residence was the obvious choice. Hongya's eyebrows shot up. That is wildly against protocol. They are convicted rebel leaders. If the court finds out you moved them into your home, they will accuse you of conspiring with the enemy. I leaned back and crossed my legs. And what will the gossip actually say? That the most notorious pervert in the empire got so obsessed with the elf queen that he dragged her home to his bedroom for round-the-clock entertainment. Does that sound like treason, or does that sound like Tuesday for the third prince? She considered this for approximately 2 seconds before conceding the point. 3 extra mouths to feed is nothing. But housing convicted criminals requires doubled security. More private guards. Reinforced perimeter. That adds up fast. She paused and looked at me with an expression I was learning to fear. However, there is one easy solution, which is, shut down the red wine fountain. I blinked. The what? The red wine fountain. In your back garden. You commissioned a 24-hour continuously circulating fountain filled entirely with premium imported red wine from the southern provinces. You said it represented the refined aesthetic sensibility of the third prince and elevated the entire mansion's cultural atmosphere. My vision went dark around the edges. 24 hours a day. Imported red wine. Circulating through a fountain. Like water. Except instead of water, it was liquid money evaporating into the autumn air while this household drowned in debt. Why do I have a red wine fountain? I was on my feet, voice cracking, blood pressure achieving numbers previously unknown to medical science. Shut it down. Now. Drain it. Bottle everything and sell it tomorrow morning. Hongye did not move. She watched my meltdown with the serene patience of someone who had been waiting for this exact moment. Certainly, Your Highness. However, when you originally built the fountain, you established a household rule. Anyone who touches the fountain or suggests shutting it down receives a specific punishment. She paused for dramatic effect. She was enjoying this. They get stripped naked and beaten. I stared at her. She stared back. Neither of us blinked. That is the rule you created. And if the master breaks his own rules on day one, how will the staff ever respect my authority as head manager? Therefore, if you want the fountain stopped, you must accept the prescribed consequence. You want to strip me? No, it is cold outside. But I do need to spank you. Once. For the record. The study was so quiet I could hear my own disbelief echoing off the walls. This girl. This absolute menace. 2 days ago she was offering to die to protect her family. Now she was leveraging obscure household regulations to extract physical revenge on the body that had tormented her for years. And she had maneuvered me into a position where refusing meant hemorrhaging money through a wine fountain, while my finances bled out on the garden stones. The worst part was that her logic was bulletproof. Rules exist for everyone or they exist for nobody. If I overrode this on day one, every future order I gave through her could be challenged. She had me cornered. Checkmate by a maid with a grudge and a calculator. I grabbed my hair with both hands, let out a groan that came from the very bottom of my ruined soul, turned around, gripped the chair back, and presented the target. Do it fast. Every second that fountain runs, I lose more money than you make in a month. Hurry. I gripped the chair back and stuck my rear end out like a man awaiting execution by embarrassment. 10 seconds passed. Nothing happened. No slap. No impact. Just the sound of footsteps moving away from me. I twisted around to look. Hongye had retreated all the way to the far end of the living room. That was at least 15 meters away. She was rolling up her sleeves past her elbows, bouncing on her toes, doing little warm-up jogs in place. Her eyes were glowing with a terrifying intensity that I had only previously seen in professional athletes and people who had been waiting years for revenge. She was taking a running start. Wait, what are you doing? My voice hit a pitch previously unknown to male anatomy. I said one slap. Not a cavalry charge. Are you trying to kill me? She did not acknowledge my existence. She let out a battle cry that shook the chandelier, hiked up her skirt, and launched herself across the living room at full sprint like a human cannonball aimed directly at my exposed behind. This was not discipline. This was siege warfare conducted against a single buttock. My ruined body had the reflexes of a sleeping turtle. I could not dodge. Instinct kicked in, and I spun around to face the incoming threat, arms raised defensively, bracing for impact. Her fancy little heeled shoes hit the freshly waxed floor at maximum velocity and did exactly what heeled shoes do on polished surfaces. Her feet shot out from under her. Physics took over entirely. She went airborne briefly, let out a yelp of genuine surprise, and crashed directly into my chest like a small, beautiful missile. The momentum carried us both backward. My spine hit the carpet with a thud that rattled my teeth. Stars exploded behind my eyes. My lower back filed an immediate resignation letter from my skeletal system. My back. Oh God, my back. I lay there on the hand-woven carpet gasping like a landed fish while a warm, soft, surprisingly heavy body settled on top of me. Hongye had landed squarely on my chest. Her face was pressed against my neck. Her breathing was fast and panicked. She smelled like soap and faint flowers, which was a significant upgrade from the dungeon stench I had been marinating in all day. I became aware of several things simultaneously. Her waist was incredibly narrow under my hands, which had instinctively wrapped around her during the fall. Her body was much softer than her personality suggested. Certain parts of her anatomy were pressed firmly against my chest through thin fabric, and the rapid breathing was causing those parts to move in ways that my treacherous body was absolutely noticing despite my spine screaming for medical attention. She lifted her head. Our faces were inches apart. We stared at each other in stunned silence. Then she laughed. A real laugh. Unguarded, unplanned, the kind of sound that comes out before the brain can stop it. Her eyes crinkled into crescents, and two tiny fangs peeked out from behind her smile. For exactly 2 seconds, she was not a traumatized servant performing survival calculations. She was just a girl who had fallen on a boy and found it genuinely hilarious. Then the 3rd second arrived, and everything shattered. The light in her eyes went out like someone had flipped a switch. Horror crawled across her face in real time. Her body went rigid on top of me. Her breathing stopped completely. The trembling started almost immediately, tiny vibrations running through her muscles like an earthquake warning system activating. She had remembered who she was, who I was, what this body had done to her. She was lying on top of her master, the man who had spent years treating her like an object, and she had just laughed in his face. In her experience, every moment of comfort was a trap. Every kindness was bait. Every smile she dared to show was ammunition that would be used against her later.